It's all right. I got my wrong glasses, didn't I? Thank you, ma'am. A little better. Thank you. Good evening.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. You ready to go?
I'm ready to go.
All right. I'm calling to order the city council meeting, regular meeting, city of Hayden. It is about 5:02 p.m. Can I get a roll call of council members, please?
Council President Roeder?
Here.
Councilmember White? Yes. Councilmember Schaefer?
Here.
And Councilmember DePriest?
Yes.
Okay, we have a quorum. Would you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Matt, would you please lead us?
Sure. I better get out of the way, though. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, additions or corrections is next. This is where I announced that I want to move 3A. I am moving item 3A to be, I guess it would be the new number 8. So we will discuss that after our executive session. Moving on to the consent calendar. All items on the consent calendar are action items. The consent calendar consists of approval of January 9th, 2024 City Council meeting minutes, approval of Welch Comer Engineers Incorporated Amendment 3, authorizing contract time extension for the Hayden Atlas roundabout design. Contract extension is from December 31st, 2023 to April 30th, 2024. Approval of Newmax LLC, DBA Intermax Networks, Internet Data and Voice Commercial Enterprise Service Agreement. Approval of fiscal year 2024 first quarter treasurer's report. Approval of 2024 Hayden Peak Health and Wellness Center contractual services agreement. Approval of contractual services agreement with Tara Nelick, thank you, for art and flow paint class. And finally, approval of bills for payments. Is there any discussion with consent calendar?
I have one item, and it's 1C. And I just want to bring the attention to the city that Steve Meyer, who's on our Urban Renewal Board, is the owner of Intermax that has this contract. And I just want to make sure that we are okay with any kind of ethics violations or indirect or direct contracts that are made by people on boards of the city. And I don't know if that's true or not. Before I would vote to approve this, I would just like to make sure that it doesn't go afoul of any Idaho statutes.
Okay.
So that my motion, well, I don't know if I motion it, but I would like to remove 1C for later date until that's done.
As a separate action item for a later date, or can it be back on consent?
Back on the consent calendar, as long as we confirm it's okay.
Are we authorized to just have an open discussion and answer his question?
I believe it would be best to just remove it from consent and then have the conversation to clear up his concern and then place it back on consent at the next meeting if the concern is satisfied.
Okay.
Do I need to make a motion?
Make a motion to remove it from consent, yes.
Okay, I make the motion that we remove 1C from the consent calendar.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Abby, may we get a roll call vote, please?
We get discussion.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, let's discuss.
Just a question about it. How long have we been with these people? How long have we had contracts with them?
I believe since 2014.
10 years? Okay.
Okay, and it shows that we're getting a 12% reduction overall from our current bill on this. So we've never apparently had any issues with conflict before.
Sometimes things don't get discovered until later.
I'm just asking the question here. I'm going to agree to move it. I'm just, for informational sake, trying to understand.
Yeah, I brought it to the attention today, and
That's fine, 10 years with them, okay.
Is there any other discussion that needs to be had?
No.
Okay, let's do that roll call vote thing.
Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
Councilmember DePriest?
Yeah.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
And Council President Roder?
yes,
So moved. Consent calendar is approved with the
No.
exception of item 1C.
No, you just took a vote to remove C. so
I
now you need to-
apologize, we need a separate motion, don't we?
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry, still in my rookie uniform.
That's all right.
All right, is there any other discussion for the consent calendar, or will we entertain some kind of motion for it?
I'll move to approve the consent calendar as listed with the removal of 1C.
Okay, we have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
May we get a roll call vote, please?
Council President Roder?
yes,
Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
Councilmember White? Yes. And Councilmember DePriest?
Yes.
Okay, now so moved. All right, we're moving on to visitor public comment. I have a new script and I have a new way of approaching this, so please pay attention. This is a city council meeting taking place in public to document city business transparently. While this is not a meeting with the public, we provide citizens with an opportunity to speak at the podium. Public comments are welcome, but they cannot include upcoming issues for which our city council will reasonably hold a hearing. This especially includes those related to anticipated land use decisions. We will cordially conduct city business. If your comments are based on tearing the city down, I do still want to hear from you, but I ask you submit your comments in writing only so that I may follow up with you personally. Individual comments are limited to 3 minutes. I, our city staff and council members encourage citizens to more meaningfully engage us through a personal appointment. I will visibly indicate when a speaker needs to quickly conclude their comments. Please fill out a card located in the back of the room. If you desire to speak, upon being recognized, I will ask you to step up to the podium and introduce yourself. Do we have any comment cards that are filled out? Okay, I guess first we'll hear from Dan Mulaney.
Well, I do it in writing based on your previous comment.
I thank you for that, sir. I appreciate it. All right, Ray Drexler. Ray, before you talk, could you please state your name and tell me your primary residential city? Like, where do you live?
The state, you said, or the city?
City. I asked you to state the city, sorry, that's confusing.
Okay. Ray Drexler, I'm currently living in Hayden.
Thank you. And if you don't mind me asking, have you spoken to anyone in the city on the staff about the issue for which you're about to talk to us?
No, I haven't. And what's the reason for that question?
I'm just curious.
Okay. Just a couple minor items. Well, one of them, I think it's kind of major. Our noise standards, which is ordinance 4-1-1C, it states that no noise should be, or unusual noise should be made between the hours of 9 p.m. and 6 a.m. on weekdays, and 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. in the morning. I would like to know how we could address this to increase this to a later date in the mornings. And I'm speaking on behalf of our HOA, which is rocking our HOA, especially now that we're having a lot of construction going on Stone Creek North. And I'd like to see what it would take to change that to at least 7 o'clock during the weekdays, and even on the weekends, 8 a.m. start for Saturday and Sunday. So I'd be curious to find out from council on what actions could be taken to start looking at that. I have several residents that are very interested in that matter.
Okay.
So how do I find out this answer?
I think I would, point you at Donna, who's on city staff.
Okay.
Do you want me to answer that now, or do you want him to come in and meet with me?
It would be nice, could you guys meet offline
Well,
outside
I
of the
think
meeting?
there's people here interested in the answer, so let's talk about it right now.
Is it quick?
It's a zone text amendment, so it's similar to a zone map amendment. So it's a request from the applicant to amend the zone, pay the fees, and then run it through the public hearing process with city planning and zoning and city council.
Okay. I suspect there's a longer conversation to be had. That's why I said that. I didn't think that was something that could be answered real quick.
An
So
actual application.
why don't we, Ray, if you don't mind, if you can leave your contact information with Donna, we will reach out to
Sure, she
you.
has it.
I've got it.
Okay, we'll reach out to you and see if we can get the ball rolling.
Okay, the other ball rolling is, I like to find out where it's listed that people that come here to this council meetings are restricted from talking anything on the agenda. I want to know where that's listed and how that could be changed.
Yeah, so that's been changed as of tonight. And so if you heard my script, I said not for land use issues. So depending on what the issue is, we could potentially talk about it if it's on the agenda.
So land use issues, like the item 3A, which you took off,
Well, we
those are
moved it.
something you still wouldn't talk about.
Correct. And we have to go into executive session. And that could be explained,
Well, actually, it's just been moved to the end of the agenda.
sorry.
But land use issues that are subject to the public hearing process, all commentary needs to be during the public hearing process. So both land use issues we have tonight have a closed public hearing, and that's why neither of those could be commented on. But other items on the agenda, as the mayor has indicated, he's willing to adjust the script to allow comment on other agenda items.
Ray, I would like to improve communication with the city, but I know it's very difficult to have any meaningful conversation within a few minutes at a podium when we've got a 2-hour meeting scheduled. I really
Totally
would prefer
understood.
hearing from you guys outside of this.
It's totally understood. The only reason that it concerns myself and a lot of the HOAs in that particular area that I live in is that the particular thing that we were discussing prior and had issues before, that was all done during the highlight of our pandemic, and I think it was rushed through, and I was very disappointed that it's a closed issue, and it really affects all of our neighbors, and it's a very disappointing issue.
Understood. Thank you, sir. All right, is there anyone else that has not filled out a card? I'm hearing no. All right, we will move on to new business. PZE 22-0129. We have 2 action items, a private street request for the proposed Trail Creek Estates subdivision, and to consider PZE 22-0129 Trail Creek Estates preliminary plat. Boy, I hate when I leave my good glasses at home. Looking over the top.
Okay, so one, where's the presentations folder at? Oh, there it is. Not where I would look for it, right? Where's this private street? So, the presentation is kind of intermingled. I talked to the mayor prior to presenting, and we're going to do a recap of the subdivision, and then the applicant has the opportunity to present on request of the private street. And the conclusion of that, I'll answer questions from the council about the record that stands before them. Tonight's meeting is a public meeting, not a public hearing. Both requests for the private street are a public meeting request, and the subdivision is a public meeting. So the public had opportunity to provide comments during the public hearing at planning and zoning. So this is just a recap summary of the record as it stands before you, minus the request for the private street, because those only come to city council. So the Planning and Zoning Commission public hearing was on January 8th. That's really interesting. They put dashes in one and slashes in the other. Very strange. Anyway, city council is a public meeting, and that's tonight. So the location of the property is on the northeast corner of North Ramsey Road and West Dakota Avenue. The development team is the applicant and engineer of record is Eric Olson of Olson Engineering. And Jeremy Terzulli is here as well as a land consultant for that group. The owners are Justin and Laurel Kerr of the property. The existing zoning is residential suburban, and the future land use map shows it as being mixed residential. So just as a matter of background and interest, when this subdivision came forward previously to City Council, it was concurrent with a zone map amendment request that was recommended for approval from the Planning and Zoning Commission for both the zone map amendment request and the subdivision. And when it came forward to City Council denied the zone map amendment from residential suburban to mixed residential. They went back as a result of having that denial and the request for reconsideration that again denied it. They went back and amended the Trail Creek Estates subdivision request that was here and reduced the number of lots to 10 lots in conformance with the residential suburban zone designation, and included a private road request that would come before City Council. So this is a derivation of the plat as it's proposed, with the continuation of North Hubble Street from the subdivision to the north to West Dakota Avenue. That would remain public, and then the private street as proposed, and if approved by the City Council, is Remick Street with that kind of turnaround at the end. The subdivision request is for the existing conditions on the property. It exists as 2 legal lots, but held together as 1 tax parcel of 6.441 acres. And there is a single residential structure on site with the usual outbuildings. The proposal is for 10 lots with lot sizes ranging from ½ an acre, which is the minimum in residential suburban, to 0.69 acres with the average a lot of 0.524 acres. No individual access is allowed on either North Ramsey Road or West Dakota Avenue. So then, just working through the summary of the staff review and the standards of approval for a subdivision. Standards 1 and 2 talk about infrastructure constructed to function in a manner that promotes public health, safety, and welfare, constructed and located in an orderly manner, and those are addressed as you work through the summary of the staff review. So the third standard of approval is that the infrastructure is or will be in compliance with all applicable city, state, and federal policies and regulations. So in conformance with that, will serve letters were provided by Hayden Lake Irrigation in July of 2022, and those were updated in November of 23. Northern Lakes Fire Protection District comments for construction in November of 2022 are according to conversation, are the same. They wouldn't; those wouldn't change in an updated letter. And the will serve provided by the city of Hayden in September of 2022 was updated in November of 23. The project site is located in the H6 sewer basin, and the Moonridge Estates to the north is stubbed to the south in anticipation of this property connecting at the time of future development. And staff identified that the sewer adjacent to this subdivision within Dakota Avenue shall be constructed at the time of any future development of this subdivision. Stormwater and snow storage shall be reviewed at the time of construction plan review in accordance with Title 8. So if you overlay the subdivision on top of the aerial imagery, it gives you a comparison of the lots to the north and around it, but how those lots to the north will butt up against those lots as identified in the preliminary plat. Street names and addressing shall be reviewed by the city at the time of final plat review. Ramsey Road, and as an example of the street names, so if Remick Hubble is a continuation of Hubble, but if Remick already exists as a street name anywhere else in the county, the city's adopted the path that we don't have duplicate road names. So we would require them to change that road name to a road name that isn't somewhere else. Ramsey Road shall be constructed to the half width of a modified C2 typical section, and Dakota Avenue shall be constructed to a C1 typical section. An internal street shall be built to an ST 111, 111A typical section, and all required street improvements shall be in accordance with the current city standard drawings, including pedestrian ramps, sidewalks, stormwater facilities, etc. Geohazards shall be reviewed during the construction plan review. And no parcels, again, shall have that access primary or secondary to Dakota Avenue or to Ramsey Road. Mailboxes are preferred to be located on those internal public streets. The existing zone is residential suburban, single-family residential on larger lots with minimal agricultural uses. The setbacks can be found on page 5 of your staff review, and they're kind of summarized here. The only differences between residential suburban and single-family residential, which you have seen quite a lot of, are the minimum lot size. In this case, it's 21,780 square feet, or that half acre. And the side yard setbacks are 10 feet, both for the primary structure as well as for any accessory structures that are on the site. Goals and policies of the comprehensive plan can be found on page 8 of your staff review. And again, as I always say, these are goals and policies that staff can pulls out and kind of might apply, but you may find others. That's why all of the goals and policies are all included in every staff review in the appendix. So staff identified that we want to maintain an attractive and balanced mix of land uses, densities, and housing types to promote greater choices and opportunities, encourage the development of land within the corporate limits prior to annexations, preserve, protect, and strengthen the vitality and stability of existing neighborhoods, ensure that all development can be serviced by existing public facilities or extended to adequately serve the development, adequately site essential public facilities and utilities, establish a balance between those jobs and housing, coordinate timely and efficient, effective, and environmental sound sewer, water, and other utility infrastructure, and assuring the costs of the development, I didn't catch that typo again, are shared equitably and accommodate for ongoing growth, ensure that ordinances and policies don't violate private property rights or adversely impact property values, and promote and encourage the development through a variety of housing options. And again, the same thing with policies. The development should be compatible with the land use chapter of the comprehensive plan, fiscally responsible. City infrastructure improvement projects should aim to improve all above and below ground facilities, improve pedestrian, bicycle, and vehicular safety along city streets, coordinate, support local water and irrigation districts, and you'll see a couple of comment letters from the water jurisdiction regarding this project. Ensure levels of public services, facilities, and utilities are adequate to satisfy the community's needs now and as new development occurs. Minimize financial and operational impacts resulting from road improvement projects and maintenance. And again, ensure land use and zoning compatibility with airport. Then standard number 8 identifies that all on and off-site improvement shall be required of the developer. Extension of infrastructure per the adopted city code standards and plans, mitigating improvements as required. So as part of the agency notices that went out with this amendment of from the previous to the now, with fewer lots, 20 agencies were noticed and the public agencies who responded. Coeur d'Alene Airport requested an navigation easement. Kootenai Electric had no comments. Panhandle Health District had no comments. Hayden Lake Irrigation District had full support of the subdivision, and that was updated in November of this year. Idaho Department of Environmental Equality had no comments. Northern Lakes Fire Protection District had comments at the future development. Kootenai County Sheriff's Office had no concerns. That was updated in November of this year. And Hayden Area Regional Sewer Board identified that there was a force main at the intersection of Dakota and Ramsey. So no public comments were received prior to the public hearing with the Planning and Zoning Commission, and at the public hearing with Planning and Zoning Commission, as was identified in the minutes that you have in your packets, as well as in the written recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission that is also in your packets. No public provided comments at the time of the public hearing, either in favor or opposed. The one comment that was received, which was neutral comment, had a question regarding a fence that was adjacent to the project. So there were staff recommended conditions of approval. They are beginning on page 9 of your staff review, and they're summarized here. And I noted for planning and zoning that if you were to approve this with staff recommended conditions of approval, please refer those back to the ones that are either in the written recommendation or that are in the staff review, because these are summarized here, not in full detail. So under general conditions of approval, there are dedications and easements on the plat. Any joint stormwater requirements or easement maintenance, et cetera, shall be identified. Permits from outside agencies would need to be addressed, like the Coeur d'Alene Airport's navigation easement request. And the, there was one more. Oh, HARBS, Hayden Area Regional Sewer Board's force main that they identify in the intersection. They have to get a permit from the Hayden Area Regional Sewer Board to do any work over and above the force main that exists there. So that's part of the outside agencies that we would be looking for permits from, as well as Northern Lakes Fire Protection District. Any approvals that are approved run with the land. We identified that no access point onto those collector streets, and identify that in accordance with our access policies that the final location of all accesses shall be approved by the city. And then the construction plan requirements identify the typical sections that streets are to be built to. 5D is that Remick Street to a private street typical section should the city council approve that request for a private street. It talks about erosion control. The developer shall use the Hayden sanitary sewer in accordance with the sewer master plan. We work with the post office to figure out good mailbox locations and to ensure whether or not we need to have turnouts for those mailboxes. There's a dry grass mix shall be applied until individual lots are constructed and installation of landscaping requirements is met. That's to ensure that the topsoils don't blow into the neighbors to the north, generally speaking. Street frontage, landscaping, irrigation, and maintenance is a requirement of the subdivision. It happens at the time of subdivision construction, but it gets put in as part of the individual lot development. Any removal or demolition of existing structures requires permits. So if you have an accessory building and you're going to pick it up and move it, you still have to get a move permit. If you have a house that you're going to demolish, you need to come in and get a demolition permit. If you're having a house that you work with the fire department to burn, you work through a permit process with them as well. So that all requires permits. And if the existing residents were to remain, then the lots that get constructed, the lots as they're platted need to ensure that that new lot meets the setback requirements, driveway access, stormwater, all of the requirements in code, including connecting to city sewer. Then I have several slides of the standards of approval, but they're in your staff review. And I can leave those up or take those down because we've gone through all of those. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval with staff recommended conditions of approval for the amended request of the preliminary plat approval of the Trail Creek Estates subdivision. And then at the conclusion of the presentation from, I believe, Jeremy, on the private road request, the city council could approve that request or deny that request, and depending on that outcome of that request, condition 5D may or may not be applicable and the requirements on how that private street gets constructed. So this would be the decision kind of slide that I would leave up here at that point in time. Questions? Yes.
Are we talking about the private road now? Are we intermixing these two
I'm gonna have Jeremy come up and request the private road.
before we talk about it? Okay.
Is that all right? Because I think it'll make more sense if we do it that way.
Well,
It's up to you.
I'll go ahead and ask, and if not, we can pass it on.
Okay.
The private road, the city would have no responsibility for maintenance, plowing, or anything, correct?
That's correct.
So I envision snow, they remove their own snow and they don't push it into, who's that street there, Hubble?
Street. That's correct.
Okay, so they would have to keep it all self-contained and whatever, do whatever with it? The city have no responsibility to it? Okay, thank you.
I have a follow-up to Ed, if I may. So the 3 lots on the east side, that road, Hubble, would be maintained by the city.
Correct.
So those folks on the east side would have an expectation that the city is going to plow our streets. So the lots that are within Remick Street, the other 7, how will they know? Will it be on their deed, or how would it be identified that they know they're not going to get city services? I'd hate, pardon?
Street maintenance, not, because it's a private street, so it's a blue sign, not a green sign. That's first, from a visual standpoint. But it'll be identified on the plat.
I'm just thinking an
And in the
application.
master development agreement as well.
They buy a house, the road doesn't get plowed for whatever reason, they call the city. And I mean, is there any way that they're going to be identified in a deed or something that says, hey, you're on your own?
I would imagine they'll have a road maintenance agreement.
Right.
Part of it.
That, which
Okay,
Jeremy will talk
probably
about.
premature question, but,
I can get there.
all right, thank you. Sorry.
Donna, in a paragraph or less, are you able to summarize what the 2 previous iterations were and why they were denied?
So the previous subdivision that was requested contingent upon a zone map amendment from residential suburban to mixed residential. Because the zone map amendment wasn't approved, the minimum lot sizes were too small on the old preliminary plat in order to meet the underlying zone. So they proposed an amended plat to meet the zone designation that exists today.
What were the original number of total lots?
25.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Is Remick Street as a private road going to be gated?
I can't answer that at this point.
Okay.
Okay, can I have Jeremy present private street request?
Thank you, Donna.
Okay.
Good evening, Council. Mayor Davis, Jeremy Terzulli, as Donna pointed out, I'm a land use consultant working with Olson Engineering on behalf of Justin and Morley. Not going to be introducing anything about the subdivision because that's a closed record. Just going to talk about the private street. The standards of approval, which should be in your packet. I'll just go through them real quickly and I'll work from the bottom up to help answer Council Member Roeder's question. H, which is the final standard of approval of a private road, talks about an appropriate mechanism meeting the requirements of city code established for the maintenance and repair of the road. So that would be in the covenants and restrictions in an HOA and a road maintenance agreement paragraph in there. It will be recorded on the plat as an instrument number, recorded at the county. So when you enter into escrow on a house and you get your title report, that'll show up that this is a private road, maintenance is taken care of. Your pro rata share of the road is X, Y, or Z, and those mechanisms will be put into place at that point in time. Additionally, if you drive around town and you ever see blue street signs, those are private roads. The green ones are public roads, the blue ones are private roads. Sometimes they, part of a bigger subdivision, maybe they come up with their own color, but it's typically green, or blue is your private roads, just as a matter of point. Then going back up to the top, what specific circumstances justify this request? As you can see, we're kind of locked in. This is all developed out to the north. These are all backyards here. Ramsey Road and Dakota. Based on the transportation master plan, this entire parcel was going to be allowed one access point to one of those two streets by the way intersection spacing lays out. I guess technically, off of this intersection, we could get an access point here, but all the way back here jams us up. We did a couple iterations on this. City engineer said there would be no access to Ramsey Road, period. And Hubble had to connect. And so we were kind of hamstrung with one connection point onto Dakota. And the way it lays out, the private road made the most amount of sense. We could put a cul-de-sac in here, but that would become a city street. That would have to go to you for approval as well. And we know that the Public Works Department isn't in love with plowing snow in cul-de-sacs. We felt that a private road with this small number of lots, it's going to behave in essence like a glorified shared driveway. If you look, these lots here, here, and these three over here are going to access directly onto Hubble. So you're left with, in essence, these five that are going to share this public or this private street. It's in its own tract. It's not easements. And so all stormwater and all that stuff will be addressed on the street itself. And then B, C, D, E, F, these are simple yes and no questions. There will be no additional connectivity. As I pointed out, no additional connections to Ramsey. We're not landlocking anybody. We're not connecting two public streets with a private street and kind of creating a bottleneck. The site lays out, in essence, that only a private road or a cul-de-sac would be appropriate in this location. With that, I'll stand for any questions.
Going back to the question, someone asked about a gate. I'm assuming no gate will be placed on Remick.
I can't.
The reason why I ask that is for fire protection. I mean, if there was a gate there, how do they deal with it?
So any private road and any plat request has to go to Northern Lakes Fire for review. So that design right there, I'm sure you've heard the term hammerhead, that comes right out of their, and I'm getting there circuitously, but I'm getting there. They have to review this whole thing, meaning all of the geometry up there, that comes right out of their code book. As far as a gate, if there were a gate up there, Tyler would say it's got to have a Knox box on it. So we would have to bring some Knox. KNOX is the brand name. So any commercial building or commercial gate around town has what's called a Knox box. The fire department has a master key to all of them. Pretty sure this building has a Knox box on it. If there's a fire or an emergency, they've got a master key, bang, opens up a key. If this were gated, it would have to have a motor, would have to have power to it. It would have a Knox key on it, and it's called the Knox manual override. They hit a switch and the gate opens.
Thank you.
So that's the way that works. Yes.
Hi. Thank you. I was listening to the planning and zoning meeting on this, and one of the questions asked was about where Hubble connects to the development next to it. And what's that connection going to look like? Is it
Pretty
going,
sure
and
I'm
also
not-
about the fences?
I don't think I'm supposed to comment
That's
on
a
that. 'cause
closed-
I think
that's a closed
adding
record.
additional comments to the closed public hearing.
Okay.
If I,
You're
doesn't matter
correct.
of protocol. I think Donna can answer that question.
Okay.
It's an extension of the street that already is there.
Anything else on the?
I have a question. I apologize if I have my information wrong. I'm under the impression in Hayden before, we've done a private road that ended up going to become a public road. And again, if I'm wrong, I accept that. And then Hayden stuck with trying to plow and give services on a road that's geometrically smaller than the roads we would build if they were public roads. So I guess maybe for the city or Fonda or for the developer, what assurances do we have this private road's going to stay private?
As far as the,
They would come back to you and ask for a dedication, of which council would have a decision point then as to whether or not to accept the dedication of the roadway.
Okay, just asking as the guy that, is got to be accountable for getting the snow out of the way.
for sure.
Thank you.
And like I mentioned, the master transportation plan, it explicitly prohibits any connection from this property to Ramsey Road. So unless Ramsey Road goes down in classification, which I don't see happening, the city's never going to want to connect this road.
Thank you, Jeremy.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I stand for questions, or you can go to deliberation. Tell me where to go.
City Council, do we have any more questions for the city? I'm hearing none, so I believe we next proceed to deliberations. You prefer to just randomly speak, or would you prefer I call? Tom, you want to start?
I have no comments.
No comments, Ed?
Sure, I'll go.
All right.
As has been discussed, this was previously brought forward, and for 25 lots, whatever, I believe that's what it was. And I remember this speaking for myself, the issue was Dakota and the nature of that street, the width, the lack of sidewalks, swales, et cetera, and stuff like that. Now they've come back with something that is what it is zoned for, which is residential suburban with half-acre lots. And I think that it is much more appropriate for that location and for the area as far as, 10 versus 25 and the number of trips and vehicles it's going to generate in there. So I appreciate the developers coming back with this plan, and I think it's a good plan.
Sandra?
So what is it we are deciding right now? Is it the private road? Is the private road the topic of decision?
I believe, yes.
We have two
Well, we've got-
decision points.
Yeah, there's two decision points. There's,
The private road and then the preliminary plat.
yeah.
Okay,
So 4A's got two actual action items in it.
okay. Let's see, I was gonna ask, what will the frontage on Ramsey and Dakota look like?
Are they in deliberations, or are they in?
Well, why don't you do one deliberation first, which would be the private road, because that decision has to be made first anyways.
Okay.
And take action on that, and then depending on the outcome, come back to the preliminary plat.
Thank you, Fonda. Okay, so do we have any more comments on the road then?
No. Go ahead.
I don't see any problem with the road. I think that based on the geometry of the lots and accommodate them, I have no problem with that. I think
Okay.
it's good.
Now would be the time where we could suggest a motion, right?
Yes.
So we'd like to make a motion on action item 4A1.
Sure. Okay, yeah, I would make sure I'm on the right one here. Move that we approve PZE-22-0129 Trail Creek Estates private road request for the proposed Trail Creek Estates subdivision.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Maybe we get a roll call, please.
So Ed, Councilmember DePreez, you made that motion? correct?
Yes.
And Council President Roder, you seconded?
Yes, I did.
Councilmember Schaefer,
Yes.
Councilmember White,
Yes.
Council President Roder,
Yes.
and Councilmember DePreez.
Yes.
Okay, so that passes. All right, so now we have to consider the preliminary plat request, or planned preliminary, sorry. Yes, the preliminary plat. So start with Matt.
Okay, starboard side, right?
Our,
We have another ship captain right over there, I found out tonight. I like this type of development because we have shrinking, in my opinion, residential suburban lots, meaning they're not getting smaller. We have fewer and fewer. And our comp plan addresses that we should have a mix of different zones. And I like the larger lots. I know it costs more. It creates more open space than what was originally planned at 25 homes. So I like this, and I'm going to vote yes on it.
okay, Sandra.
I don't really have any comments. I was just glad to see suburban lots here, and I think, again, it adds to the mix of what's available in Hayden, and keeps with the flavor of that neighborhood. So,
Ed, I know you already commented. Anything to add?
Not really, except I do believe that it fits well if you have an overhead of what's there presently. I think it fits in with the context of the neighborhood, which I think has become a significant point with relationship to development in the various areas. So again, I thank the developer and the people for coming back with this. I think it's a good plan.
Okay, Tom?
I'm pleased to see 10 lots instead of 25.
Very well. So noted. Would anyone like to make a motion?
Mr. Mayor,
I'm sorry, did I jump the gun?
somebody say how these are meeting the standards of approval. We all agree that we like it, but I have nothing direct.
That is true, and I was such a stickler on P and Z for that. And I completely failed there. I apologize.
Context of the neighborhood, isn't that
That
one?
is not a standard.
That's not a standard of-
Subdivision.
Yes, we should
What,
say,
the
we
zone-
should say why we are making our decisions commensurate with their standards of approval.
I'll just say that based on what I see, the development's meeting all the standards of approval, and I have no problem with that.
Okay,
I'll second that.
all right, now let's have a motion, shall we?
Okay, one more quick thing.
Oh,
Can we ensure that we're doing 2A so that we add a condition that it requires the private road to meet the private road standards as part of the subdivision requirements? In your motion, whoever's motion.
we'll find out. Let's motion. Let's
Since you've approved
motion.
the private road, that's.
Okay. I would move that we approve action item PZE, no, that's not it. Action, consider PZE 22-0129 Trail Creek Estate preliminary plat with standard of approval.
No, with conditions recommended by staff to include.
Okay, with
Additionally.
conditions recommended by staff to include, is that 2A? Should the city council approve the request, the above motion shall include condition number 5D and add a condition to require the private road meet standards of approval in Hayden City Code Title 10, Chapter 3.
You got it.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I will second.
We have a second. May we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember White,
yes.
Council President Roder,
Yes.
Councilmember Schaefer,
Yes.
and Councilmember DePreez.
Yes.
All right. We have another new business item, action item PZE-23-0140, Hayden Sky Preliminary Planned Unit Development Request.
In an effort to try to simplify the standards of approval for preliminary PD,
Thank you.
this also is a public meeting, and I tried to encapsulate the standards of an approval in a couple of pages instead of all the way through your stuff. And throughout this PowerPoint. And the flow chart at we're at the city council public meeting phase on the flow chart. And our flow charts for all of these
Thank you, Donna.
I'll share. I'll share.
So PZE 230115 is the Hayden Sky preliminary planned unit development. Planned unit developments kind of have parts, and they have different standards for each part. So the preliminary planned unit development is kind of a high-level look at a project to see if it makes sense, if it looks like it'll work, if it looks like it'll fit, and then should the council approve this in principle, then we kind of get down to the nuts and bolts of how it works as part of a final PUD plan that would come subsequent to this, most likely with the first phase of a subdivision. So the planning, both the preliminary PUD has a public hearing with planning and zoning and a public meeting with city council. And then the final PUD will have that same process, another public hearing and another public meeting before it gets entirely approved. So the public hearing before the Planning and Zoning Commission happened in December of 2023. And apparently I was interrupted a lot today, so it's a miracle we have any PowerPoints at all. The City Council public meeting is tonight on January 23rd of 2024. It was a matter of background. Just for the audience sake, staff review that's on that was presented, the memo that was presented to council for this particular project alone is 125 pages long. And I heard from most of the council, I know they've read it. So I think that's pretty awesome. Just as some background, in 1991, the property was annexed into the city of Hayden. It was de-annexed by court order and then annexed again by owner request in 2013 by ordinance number 524. Conditions of that annexation included, but are not limited to, a 225-foot plus or minus wide strip adjacent to Hutter Road was required to be set aside in anticipation of a future bypass. The gross residential density of the annexed area was limited to 4 dwelling units per acre, and 15 acres of the property must be developed as public park area. The property today consists of undeveloped grassland, hayfield, several structures on the southeast corner of the project, a well house, and the existing home to be removed during redevelopment of the property should this request be granted. So the applicant and the engineer of record for the request, Jeremy Trezulli and Eric Olson Engineering. And the owners of the project are John and Jacqueline Peterson and the Mills Family Tree Farms LLC. And so the first portion of the staff review is really driven a lot from the narrative and the applicant's proposal. So you'll see me deferring back to that applicant's narrative pretty heavily. And then at the end of the analysis, you will see that it's more staff code related specific. So the vision of Hayden Sky, based on the applicant's narrative, is to create housing for a community in desperate need of a wider range of housing options. The request identifies a mix of housing options. It recognizes a light industrial component, but also recognizes the limitation of light industrial uses in concert and not in conflict with the predominantly residential uses of the approximately 127 plus or minus gross acres of the project site. The project is anticipated to be constructed in 4 phases, with the parkland to be developed in the 3rd and 4th phase. So as a matter of location, it is east of Hutter. It is south of the airport. It's west of North Carrington Street. And if you were to take the zoning map and put it on top of this, this line is the border between the commercial zone and single-family residential adjacent to it. So prior to application submittal, a boundary line adjustment was completed, which effectively removed this weird quirky parcel and made this larger parcel and this parcel down here. The commercial piece is not a part of this planned unit development. So the only piece is the piece that has the residential and the light industrial as it's currently zoned. Okay. So the analysis looks at Hayden City Code 1165. All of Chapter 6 is the Planned Unit Development Code. And Idaho Statute 676515, 676509, and 676512. So A of the standards of approval identifies that the proposed PUD is or is not consistent with the intent and purpose of this chapter. So the definition of the intent is this really long paragraph that I don't want to read all of. The intent is to provide greater flexibility in land use and encourage greater design creativity than is generally allowed under conventional standards and development approaches in order to create a better overall development pattern and design. It includes both residential and non-residential uses. It also needs to show that it is planned and developed as a functional unit or the neighborhood, which is taken as a whole. It's consistent with the general goals and policies of the city's comp plan and the overall intent of the city's zoning ordinance. We're going to kind of work through those. In the applicant's narrative, they identified that this project will provide a greater flexibility in the types and sizes of housing options. It's to provide connectivity with two neighborhood parks, one proposed to be 6.6 acres and the other one proposed to be 8.48 acres, and connectivity throughout the extents of the PUD to the extent of the PUD. A light industrial use that will not be in conflict with the residential uses, but instead will be complementary. And the road design is in accordance with the transportation plan from east to west and north to south. The applicant identified goals and policies. Goal 3, which again, maintaining that balanced use of land and density and housing type, and ensuring a future character of the community, promoting greater choices and opportunities. Married with policy 4 that identifies the city should evaluate community-wide impacts from development, identifying their needs for public facilities, utilities, services, circulation, and housing, and the effects on city resources. So the applicant has identified that the variety of housing as proposed meets these goals, and additionally notes that the proposed project is actually less than 70% of the residential density cap per the annexation agreement. It goes on to state that the variety of housing being provided will allow the developer to also produce housing at different price points due to the more efficient use of land. The applicant identified goal 9 to ensure adequate park, recreation, and open space are provided and maintained for the continued enjoyment of the community. And they identified policy 2. Development should be compatible with the land use chapter of the comprehensive plan and fiscally responsible in supplying adequate transportation, utilities, and parks to newly developed areas. The applicant identified that the comprehensive plan speaks to the desire for the preservation of open space. The 15 acres of parkland is a benefit to the entire Hayden community for generations to come. The development team also welcomes conversations with the city parks community at large to provide park amenities that benefit the residents of Hayden. They identified goal 15 that coordinates timely development of the infrastructure, and policy 9 that identifies regularly evaluating and updating impact fees to support transportation and parks, and require developer participation in land donations and mitigations. The applicant identified that the greatest benefit of the city and its residents will be the developer contribution to city infrastructure through the payment of impact fees and the developer contribution to infrastructure upgrades that will be identified through the transportation impact analysis. They identified goal 12, establishing that balance between jobs and housing, and policy 17, encouraging that small scale retail, restaurant service, as well as attract a live to work lifestyle between commercial and residential. So the applicant identified the economic development chapter 8 of the comprehensive plan, and that provides data indicating that less than 15% of working age Hayden residents also work in the city. They identify that additionally 86% of the people employed in Hayden live elsewhere. They go on to talk about the Hayden Sky PUD objectives to create several different housing options on smaller lots in an effort to keep the final sales of the prices well below the current median home price. So let's look at zone designations. So the zone designations that we're kind of talking about for this planned unit development include single-family residential, R1, use, and light industrial. So single-family residential, again, are those classic Hayden neighborhoods where single-family homes are on smaller lots are permitted. Accessory dwelling units are permitted where they can fit by design standards, but two-family dwellings are not. Mixed use, as we all know, is a mixture of uses between commercial and multifamily, creating a flexible environment for development with fewer restrictions on structure types and densities. And light industrial zone provides for light manufacturing, processing, distribution, wholesale, retail sales, et cetera, all the uses that are allowed in light industrial. So that's the intent. Let's look at purpose. Well, the purpose is a planned unit development may be approved if it is determined that it creates an overall design that is consistent with the goals and policies of the city's comprehensive plan, fulfills the general intent of the purpose of the zoning ordinance, is compatible with standards and character of the underlying zone and the comprehensive plan future land use designation, and achieves one or more of the following objectives. It doesn't have to meet all of the following objectives. It only has to meet one of the following objectives. So it can allow a variety of housing choices and building types, permits an increased density per acre and a reduction in lot dimensions, yards, building setbacks and area requirements, balanced by the provision of open space and common areas. So if I were to go to A, the applicant identified the following with respect to purpose A: a variety of sizes of lots and homes. The annexation agreement limits the density to 4 dwelling units per acre. So as proposed, the 412 dwelling units on the 127-acre site is a density of 3.24 dwelling units per acre. If you added the 23 acres adjacent, that commercial that was annexed in at the same time as the 127, the density would have been 2.75 dwelling units per acre, because commercial doesn't allow for residential. The applicant has requested to waive the minimum lot size in single-family residential in accordance with 1164E. And lot sizes as proposed range from 5,000 square feet to 15,666 square feet, with an average of 6,500 square feet. So B, under purpose, is that a more useful pattern of open space and recreation areas as achieved with more convenience in the location of accessory commercial uses or industrial uses and services, if applicable. And they identify that the planned unit development has a 25-foot perimeter setback and landscape buffer. That's a requirement of all planned unit developments. It has 2 parks centered on Dakota Avenue, and it has multimodal pathways and or sidewalks throughout the proposed planned unit development. C, under purpose, identifies that the development pattern preserves and utilizes natural topography and geologic features, scenic vistas, waterways, trees, and other vegetation, and prevents the disruption of natural drainage patterns. So, under C, they identify that the prairie is not entirely flat. Many people think it is, but it's not quite. And that stormwater drainage shall be addressed at construction plan submittal. D, a more efficient use of land than is generally achieved through conventional development, resulting in substantial savings through shorter utilities and streets. So they identify that for both D and E, and we'll go back to E in a minute, that the design is based on the city's comprehensive plan's preferred land use patterns, creates housing for a community in need of a wider range of housing options. They've addressed all 5 standards, keeping in mind they only really have to meet 1. And E was a more energy efficient development that has a minimization of stormwater runoff, or one or with more open space and concentrated density, thematic architecture design, or more beneficial community design and patterns of land use. All right, so that was A, just A. Now we're going to go to B. The proposed development advances or does not advance the general welfare of the community. The applicant identified that they attempted to offer a variety of housing types and price points within the city of Hayden without creating additional density beyond that in most areas zoned as single-family residential R1. Hayden Sky, as proposed, provides for nearly 13.7% of their gross area as open space, in addition to the park's impact fees to be collected at the time of each building permit. Transportation impact analysis identifies additional mitigation at the intersections of Hutter and Hayden and at Carrington at Hayden. Those mitigation requirements and the timing of when those mitigation requirements is proposed will happen as part of the final planned unit development when that comes forward. Just going to drill down into the weeds. The boundary line adjustment code of the Hayden City Code identifies that if you do a boundary line adjustment on 2 properties and within 3 years you develop one of those properties, then you have to do the frontage improvements and connect that property to sewer, even if that's not the property that's being developed. So it's part of the subdivision code that makes those requirements. C. The benefits, combinations of land uses, and the interrelationship with land uses in the surrounding area justify or don't justify the deviation from the standard zoning district regulations. So there's 2 zoning designations, as can be seen here. And those are light industrial, and that's got an area of about 16 acres. And their single-family residential area is about 111 acres. And policy 12 of the comprehensive plan identifies that you should encourage rezoning and zoning text amendments to support the creation of strategic nodes or higher density development and transition zones between residential and industrial uses. Hayden City Code 1164C identifies the uses that are permitted within a PUD. So all uses allowed within the underlying zoning district are permitted within a PUD. A mix of residential, commercial, industrial, or combinations of these land uses may also be permitted within a PUD subject to the following conditions. Residential developments may include single-family and multifamily dwelling units, such as townhouses, garden apartments, common wall, single-family, other cluster housing, and multifamily dwellings as separately deeded lots, condominium ownership, or as lease or rental housing. Non-residential uses may include commercial uses, commercial buildings and establishments, light industrial uses, recreation uses, etc. Those uses shall be planned as groups having common parking areas and common ingress and egress points. And up to 10% of the gross land area of a residential PUD may be utilized for something not residential. And up to 10% of the gross land area of a non-residential PUD can be used for something residential. So in a residential PUD, the uses are or are not appropriate and compatible with the residential uses within the planned unit development and the comprehensive plan future land use designation for surrounding properties. So what you have here is a comparison of the future land use map for the city of Hayden, which shows this to be mixed use, single family residential, and light industrial. And then you have the future land use map for Kootenai County on the right-hand side, which shows it as being border or transition in that area. And those are all defined in your staff review. So the townhomes, as they're proposed, are 4 dwelling unit structures or fourplexes. This is kind of a blow up on the left-hand side. This is a blow up of what's going to be in the center of the proposed plat area. And then there are some fourplexes in the north side of Phantom, outside of the airport critical zone, outside of the airport critical zone. So then we do a lot analysis. You identify how many existing acres you have of the zones that you have. So you have 111 acres of residential R1, and you have 16 acres of light industrial. And as proposed, they're proposing 8.4 acres of the land to be used as light industrial use, which is well within the 16 acres that they have. And they're proposing 44.29 of the acres of the 111 acres that they have to be residential lots. They're proposing 10.5 acres to be those townhomes or the fourplex lots. And if you took 10% of the 111 residential acres, that's 11.1 acres. So their 10.5 is well within that 10% that they're allowed to have different use, different than their R1 use. And then they are proposing that 15-acre park. That's a requirement of their annexation. The dedicated public road right-of-way and the future Hutter Road right-of-way setback area is what's remaining from those uses, from those acres, I should say. 2, the uses are or are not intended to serve principally the owners, residents, or occupants of the planned unit development. So the proposed uses of the light industrial is for self-storage, primarily for the residents of the planned unit development, but not restricted to just the owners. The uses are or are not planned as an integral part of the planned unit development. So the design is proposed to integrally allow for the variety of park uses and connections and to buffer that more intense use along the commercial of the Hayden corridor and the light industrial corridor of Phantom. Individual access points to the collectors will be limited. Varying price points of the residential lots is to foster more residents of Hayden to work in Hayden as proposed. And the uses are or are not located and so designed as to provide suitable access to collector or arterial streets without creating congestion or traffic hazards. So access to the site will be primarily from Carrington Street with a secondary access from Hayden Avenue through Downing Lane. Downing shall be right in and right out. And Fire and City of Hayden access policy shall be followed, requiring 2 access points with the development of the first phase of the project. So let's find a map. He's hunting over there. Actually, that's not really great, but we'll start there. So access points are out onto Carrington, which is here. Hayden Avenue is down here south of that commercial property. Part of the requirement is that Downing will have to be extended to Hayden Avenue and make that connection onto Hayden Avenue, so you have a point east and a point south.
There is none on Hutter.
Can't have access onto Hutter. Yeah, not today anyway. There will be, I can't say that, let's back up. There will be an access to Hutter through Dakota when Dakota connects up here to the north, but there isn't any access point south of Dakota to Hutter. A proposed timetable for the development of the various uses is specified and shall be provided. We did have a kind of a general idea of where those phases were going to land as part of the preliminary PUD, but as part of the final PUD, they'll really hone in on where those phases are at, what needs to be built for each phase in order to make it function. So that comes as part of the final PUD process. They're anticipated that should these approvals, should they receive approvals of the preliminary PUD and the final PUD, that the first phase would begin in 2024. So non-residential uses. Well, the blue is the light industrial proposed lot. And it butts up against that kind of more intense residential use. So they have to have landscape and setback buffers to the residential. And Phantom connects the non-residential uses to the east to Dakota Avenue, which continues to the west. The proposed development of the proposed location meets or doesn't meet the standards of approval of a conditional use permit as set forth in section 11.7.3. So it has 3 standards of approval for a conditional use permit. The first one is that the proposal is or is not in accordance with the general objectives or with any specific objective of the comprehensive plan and or the zoning ordinance. So the applicant identified goals and policies we talked about previously. Those are identified beginning on page 17 of your staff review. And then again in their entirety within the appendix of the staff review. When you're looking at a residential, non-residential, single-family, multi-family project, including park area and transportation connectivity, you pretty much hit all the goals and policies, as you can tell. There are very few that are lacking. Let's see, 1, 2, 6, 13, 16 of the goals aren't there. And of the policies, the only ones that aren't there are 3, 5, and 6, 9, 15, and 16, 20, and 21. So it literally has almost all the goals and policies. Pretty much everything. It's not central business district. So if you're looking at the comprehensive plan land uses, light industrial is again that activity made up of light manufacturing, processing, distribution. Mixed use has that mixture of commercial and multifamily. And single family is that classic single family home, typically ranging from 3 to 4 units per acre. Staff review also goes back and looks at the rest of the comprehensive plan and the goals and policies that point to various land use chapters or various chapters of the comprehensive plan. Chapter 4 is land use, most specifically related to land use types, the Fort Lee Airport, land use concerns and private property rights. Chapter 5 on housing, housing unit types, household characteristics, the summary and indicators. Chapter 6, living and natural environment, and determine if there are any areas of concern which are required to be mitigated. Chapter 7, transportation, most specifically related to road classification, system issues, non-motorized facilities, the Hutter bypass, most notably with respect to annexation requirements, the capital improvement projects within the 2040 Transportation Strategic Plan. Chapter 8, economic development, most specifically related to the professions of residents living in Hayden, the inflow and outflow of employees in the economic development summary. Chapter 9, parks and recreation, most specifically related to classifications, levels of service, and future plans within the 2040 Parks Master Plan. Chapter 10, local services, both within the city of Hayden with respect to commissions and those public agencies providing service to the citizens, to include schools, police, services, fire protection, all the utility providers, solid waste, water service, and sewer service. All of these agencies have been noticed as part of this request, and their comments are included in staff review. On Chapter 11, community design, most specifically related to subdivision standards and design standards of the PUD. I'm not going to reread zone definitions. We heard them at the beginning. It is important to note that no additional exceptions to setbacks have been identified by the applicant. Accessory dwelling units are only allowed on single-family residential lots when other design standards are met. And height restrictions may apply to structures that are near the airport. That's the first standard approval condition use permit. Now we're heading for the second one. The location of all of the infrastructure, streets, police, fire protection, drainage, refuge, water, sewer, schools, or persons or agencies responsible for their establishment of the proposed use shall be able to provide adequately any such services. So a complete analysis shall occur at the time of subdivision and site development conformance with Hayden City codes, policies, and standards. And Hayden Lake Irrigation District is the water purveyor, and there is a well on site. The city of Hayden is the sewer purveyor, and the entire site is within the H7 sewer basin. Northern Lakes Fire Protection District is the fire provider, and the street shall be constructed in accordance with the adopted typical sections. And standard number 3 is that the design and planning of the site is or is not compatible with the location, setting, and existing uses and the intended character of the general vicinity. So notice was sent to 28 public agencies. And of those public agencies who responded, the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office didn't see any immediate impact that would prevent it from being approved. Harbs identified that they requested an odor easement on the plat and additional language to be included in all lease and rental agreements within the PUD. The Department of Environmental Quality has not completed a thorough review of the documents provided and therefore provided general comments should they apply as appropriate to the specific project. Idaho Department of Water Resources identified that they should annex into Hayden Lake Irrigation District, but if they did not, they gave them directions regarding well drilling. Hayden Lake Irrigation District identified that they were going to annex into the district. They requested that they dedicate the well that's on site and grant 1/3 of an acre for the well site. And Spectrum Charter Communications requested start dates for when the project was going to begin, and Avondale Irrigation District provided no comments. Public comments that were received prior to the hearing, there were 2, and they came in really late, and they were read into the record at the public hearing of the Planning and Zoning Commission. So public comments received at the time of the public hearing, there were no members of the public that were in favor. There were 2 comments that were received that were neutral to the request. One from a property owner that identified comments related to the proposal, the comprehensive plan, lot types and styles, and I believe that it should all be regular housing. One from Harbs, they came to the meeting and again requested that odor easement and notice to renters. And then there were 3 comments, the 2 that were read into the record and one additional one that was received in opposition to the request. The one comment was concerned related to traffic on Hutter. One resident identified a lack of a need for more houses. And the third one was identified not enough infrastructure. The staff recommended conditions are in summary here, just like they were in the previous. So the PUD remains subject to all the requirements of the annexation agreement. Conditions noted here may be modified at the time of the final PUD or preliminary final plat application based on the demonstrated need for functionality, connectivity, or similar. The staff review is based on the plan proposed by the applicant, and the conditions herein are developed using that proposal. More specific infrastructure timing table, as I identified, shall be required at the time of the final PUD submittal. Mitigation related to the requirements identified in the TIA, the Transportation Impact Analysis, and their timing shall be identified in the timing table of the infrastructure as required. The Property Owners Association for all owners of the property within the PUD shall be created at the time of the final PUD, of the final approval, with association documents to be recorded with the final PUD plan. A legal instrument shall be provided for the perpetual funding for maintenance of the required areas, shall be recorded with the county prior to the recordation of the first final plat. Dedication of the parkland is a requirement of the annexation agreement, shall be in accordance with the final timing plan for the infrastructure improvements, and shall be identified as a condition of approval within a subdivision conditions of approval as required. The parkland, when it is dedicated to the city, shall be free and clear of all liens and encumbrances. Dedication of commonly owned property, the Property Owners Association shall be in accordance with the final timing plan, and a condition of the subdivision conditions of approval is required. It shall be deeded free and clear of all liens and encumbrances by deed, and should occur concurrent to the recordation of the final plat in which it is located. Should Hayden Lake Irrigation District become the water purveyor, then the requirements identified by them shall be addressed. And as part of a future subdivision, the well site shall be on a platted lot. Easement language regarding odors as identified by Harbs shall be placed on each and every plat within the planned unit development, and the CC&Rs of the POA shall address language to be included in any future lease rental. Should notify the tenant of the proximity of the sewer treatment plant. So the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended that the requested preliminary planned unit development does meet the standards of approval for a recommendation in principle to the City Council with staff recommended conditions of approval, and one additional condition of approval as follows. The application for the final planned unit development shall provide documentation that the applicant developer owner has contacted Connect Kootenai and possibly others in order to provide for a method to making a portion of the proposed housing available to actual residents of the community. So the City Council may grant approval in principle for the preliminary development plan based on the following findings. They're attached to your flow chart. And they're on this slide in shortened form A, B, C, and D. 1, 2, and 3 for the conditional use permit. The City Council may approve with conditions, modify, add conditions, or deny the request for a Hayden Sky preliminary planned unit development. I stand for questions. Maybe I should get a drink.
Sandra, do you want to start? Do you have any questions for City?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, let's see. could we see the layout of the PUD?
This one?
That works, yes. So I wanted to ask about the park. So the parks, these would be owned by the city,
Correct.
and these would be maintained by the city?
Per the annexation agreement.
Okay. So I'm concerned about the one that's in Phase 3. It just looks very private to me, like a very private park. So I'm not sure how much use other people in Hayden would get from it.
Good question.
So, yeah, that's just one concern I had about that park. Let's see. Let me defer to someone else right now, and I'll come back with more comments.
Donna Sander had a great point there. I assume that more detailed drawings would come later that might show parking the way it's illustrated right now. It does make it look like it's a closed loop, but one assumes similar to, say, the housing development just to the west of Lake City, Coeur d'Alene Place. There's a park in the middle like that, but there's parking here and there.
Correct.
So anybody could drive in and park. It's not,
Site plans are not, this is still very conceptual, actual, how it's all gonna lay out in the parking and this is a more, outwardly community sports complexy kind of feel
Yeah.
to that park. And this park is more of a neighborhood park, a little bit more, different use in that park than the more right in your face community park.
very good. Mr. Tom, anything?
Yeah, I have lots of questions. You forgive me if some of these are kind of like reviews, so I'm coming up to speed on everything, so bear with me. So reading through the description, the one thing that I noticed first was the original annexation agreement limited the density to no more than 4 dwelling units per gross acre. So I tried to do the math based on that. So, and correct me if I'm misstating anything. So 127 gross acres minus 15 acres for parks times 43,560 square feet per acre. I came up with, believe me, this is a big number, but it's just helping me frame the problem. 4,878,720 square feet. Now, regardless of how this is eventually platted out, there can be no more than 412 dwelling units. Is that a correct statement?
Per their request, that's correct.
So if I divide that number I calculated there by 412, I come up with 11,804 square feet per dwelling unit. And this is zone R1, right? Which is,
R1 in light industrial?
yeah. So that's 43% greater than the minimum lot size of 8250.
Didn't take out any roads.
Yeah. So the question I have for you is, what's the rule of thumb? For X number of square feet, how much more do you need for roads, infrastructure? Is 43% sufficient?
Depends on, I can't answer that question.
I'm not sure I fully understand the question.
Well,
I mean, that
what I'm really going to is,
so that would be gross acres. Are you just trying to come up with a square footage per lot average?
no, what I'm trying to figure out is in the original annexation agreement, the owner and developer has correct me if I'm wrong, a by right ability to just build it out in the current zoning designation, right? So
That's correct, but there's a couple of things that are kind of when the annexation agreement was approved, the zones had commercial, residential, and light industrial. Commercial allowed for multifamily by conditional use permit. So the density of 150 acres that was annexed at no more than 4 dwelling units per acre could have 600 homes. 600 dwelling units,
For 150 acres
4
originally.
times 150.
But we're down to 127 right now, right?
It's the annexation agreement that is tied to this 127 acres is 150 acres. It was for the whole 150 acre piece.
This is such a complicated
Yeah, I'm not disagreement. There's no disagreement.
to get my head around. I'm just, where I'm really going with this is why mess with anything and just leave it as residential,
I'm gonna let Fawn answer this question.
So I think your question is, why are they bringing forth a PUD rather than just leave it as the 8,250 square foot lots for a single-family residential subdivision?
right.
So the purpose of a PUD generally, and in this case, we know from the previous public hearing, is that their goal is to be able to provide a variety of product types. And the 8,250 limits them on the type of product that they can provide. So the purpose of a PUD, if you've read through all of the, and I know you did, all of the pages, is to have deviations from code with a backside trade-off of some benefit to the community. So for instance, they've put in their narrative, we'd like to have these deviations from code to allow us to offer these different housing product types. And what we're going to be able to do for the community is bring online housing that could potentially be less expensive than the 8,250 square foot single family home. Second to that, we'll also provide our green space. So the PUD process, and that's why you get this like couple bites at the apple with this, the PUD process is at its root core is an opportunity to allow code deviations in trade for benefits to the community. And of course, that's your job to weigh whether those code deviations are, if there's enough benefit being given for those code deviations.
Okay. I don't want to dominate the floor. Somebody else has a question right now.
Because I have,
Yeah.
I think we might be in the same boat, so.
If I may go on then? Okay, so if I were to boil this down to, the purpose of this PUD is really to provide a vehicle for, I'm going to put in quotes, affordable housing, right?
Variety of housing types.
Okay, that's a euphemism. Yes, thank you. So I'll just observe that this is right on the corner of, well, very close to the intersection with our adjacent neighbor, Post Falls, that already has plenty of this housing, right?
And we're not that, at this product, well, it's not that far.
Well, it's not that far. I mean, I personally, I'm challenged by why we have to have a need to provide variety of housing types in the city of Hayden when it's already tons of it going up in Rathdrum, Post Falls, and Coeur d'Alene.
Are we not overstepping by saying, one, it's Idaho law?
Well, you're obligated under Idaho code to
Obligated,
provide within the
right.
city of variety of
And
housing
I
types.
believe we also comment on such in our comprehensive plan.
Yeah, and I did from the comprehensive plan and the 2040 future land use map. I wrote these numbers down some months ago, and I'm hoping I'm accurate. So the objectives stated were for single family, a total of 3,088 acres. And then as we upzone to more variety of housing, mixed use, 1,495, mixed residential, 1,237. So if this were to be built out as proposed, where does it put us on those targets? Is it, are we anywhere near the goal for single-family residential units on quarter-acre lots? Or, so are we emphasizing one housing variety over another when to me, it feels like this is not really an appropriate place to be doing it? And I remain open to being convinced
Of the
otherwise.
412 home residences that are proposed, 300 of those are detached, single-family homes. 73% of this planned unit development, that's 2.75 dwelling units per acre, according to the annexation agreement, are single-family residential homes, and 27% of those are fourplexes, just as a matter of numbers. I don't know how that works into the relationship of numbers you were rattling off.
Okay.
but that's what's in the,
This is a six-dimension problem for my head, just so you know, but these are the things I'm thinking about. May I go on? Councilman White brought up the parks, and my opinion is out of sight, out of mind. So it's a quote-unquote public park, but it's inside a community obscured and will be left relatively unknown to the rest of the citizens of Hayden unless they go actively seeking for them. So it gives me the feel more of like a private park.
Broadmoor, just as an ancillary to that, Broadmoor Park is in the center of Broadmoor Estates, entirely encircled by residential development.
Do you have a statistic on how much that's used by the general Hayden public?
I would defer to Susie and folks over there that are part of the community development, or community
Boulder
services.
Kite Festival there, which hundreds of people come to. We have a junior disc golf course that's been put there, which people use. There's a shelter there, which we people reserve that in the community for birthday parties, whatever they want. And there's also a playground there that lots of kids go. So it gets lots of community use, yes.
How large are those?
It's a 10-acre park.
And how much parking is provided for?
It's perimeter parking.
And we're way up here at this.
Yeah, I get it.
Way down here. So it's important to note that the as was identified in the staff review and that the note and the record from the written recommendation, and the minutes, that the developer has offered to meet with staff and with the public at large to discuss how these parks are to be used. So that's definitely on the table and open for discussion. Good comments.
I don't want to take all the oxygen out of the room. I will,
I'm gonna, so everybody else might as well blow theirs out, because I'm gonna take a lot of time.
Why don't you?
Right?
Would you please?
yeah, is this appropriate for a break time maybe, or do we want to?
Well, I was hoping we get through this and then take a break, but if council needs a break, we could take 5.
I don't, Councilman DePriest, is that okay with you?
Whatever you guys want to do, so like I said, though, you can,
Is there any special thing I need to do or just say we're on a break?
Just say you're on a break.
We're on a
Taking
break.
5-minute break.
Let's come back at 6:47, please. Okay, we're recalling to order the city council meeting. I believe Mr. Roeder was going to start with his questions.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. PUDs are such a unique animal. I don't know that in the last few years, how many we've even heard.
Few is like 3.
3, okay, there we go. So that's why this,
No, few years is like 3. So we've had very, very few.
Right.
They don't come all the time. No.
so I'm just having absorption issues with all of this, and that's my own, own thing. But let me just start off with, the proposal is for industrial R1 and mixed use. Okay, what is it currently zoned as?
Residential and light industrial. 16 acres of light industrial and 111 acres of single-family R1.
R1. Okay. And the annexation agreement says that you're going to have 4 dwelling units per acre is what's required.
Is the maximum that's allowed.
Okay, yes, yeah. So, when you consider what 4 dwelling units per acre, I'm going to come to the map, and maybe you can help me with this. Because this is where I'm struggling. Where are the multifamily units?
The fourplexes are going to be here. Here.
So if you can only allow maximum 4 dwelling units per acre.
Gross. It's gross acres.
Gross acres. Okay, so that's terminology. A lot higher density in this area than 4 dwelling units per acre. So it's high density.
In that one area, but that you look at it as a whole, not on individual
Right.
plots, in a planned unit development.
I'm just trying to wrap my brain around this 4 acres, 4 dwelling units per acre. So then, is this, if you just look at this area, is this greater than 4 units per acre for these?
All gross acres, Matt. I don't look at it on an individualized lot basis.
Can you answer my question?
I don't know. I didn't look at it that way.
Okay, so then, because what I heard in the beginning, and I wrote this down, and correct me if I'm wrong, this allows for, it's under, I think it was purpose A.
Okay.
Could you go to that? I think that was it. And what I wrote down is it allows for an increase in density per acre. That's the purpose of a PUD.
It is generally speaking, but in this case, the annexation agreement caps the density at 4 dwelling units per acre. So the intent of this PUD is not to increase density, but to allow a variety of housing types. So it's different.
But in actuality, those houses and the multi-unit dwellings are condensed into a smaller area. Even though you're taking the parks and all the roads and you're considering that in to your 4 units per acre. So that's where I was struggling with that is that it's not like our typical, we have 10 acres and it's going to be divided by R1, and it's really easy to see that each lot is whatever it is, and it's not condensed. And that's what this allows for.
It's allowed for flexibility in lot sizes.
Right, right. Okay, I just want to make sure I got that right. So where does Hutter bypass fit into all of this? And that I know that I think that we, in our future land use map, and correct me if I'm wrong, we don't know what's going to happen with that. So what requirements are going to be on this PUD regarding because I know the annexation agreement required so many feet to be set aside or dedicated to that bypass.
Correct.
So what happens to that now? Because we're not sure what's going to happen. Is that still in place?
Yeah, and that requirement is still, that set aside is still required. They can't build in that area at all.
Okay. Okay, policy number 2. Can you go to that, please?
Policy number 2. I don't know. Which way is policy number 2? Is it like a goal and policy you're hunting for? Or
Yeah,
is
it talks about adequate utilities.
That one? No, it's not that one. Sorry. Policy number 2.
I wrote down policy number 2.
That one?
Okay.
Number 2 for the conditional use permit?
Page 4.
Oh,
4 of your,
okay. Sorry.
Thank you.
Policy number 2.
I think it's slide 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, slide 8.
Oh, yeah, it's in there.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Standards, policies, what are we talking about?
2. Yeah, it says, development should be compatible with the land use chapter of the comprehensive plan and fiscally responsible in supplying adequate transportation, utilities, and parks to newly developed areas. And when it speaks of utilities, are we talking about, is there adequate utilities to be supplied to the development, or is that the developer has to make sure that those utilities are in place?
So as part of the preliminary plan unit development, we receive information from all of the utility purveyors, identifying whether or not they can serve the project. And then as part of each subdivision, phase comes in with the final PUD and the subdivisions come in, then how those get constructed by the developer and will serves are then updated for each of those subdivisions as they come forward.
So it's critical that adequate utilities are available to this development.
As it develops. That's correct.
Okay. Do we know currently what is the, I know this is a phase and I know it'll take time, but this is a concern that I have. And then I guess we're not in deliberations now, but I can bring that up later. But that's all I have right now. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Ed, there we go.
Let's hear from cleanup.
Okay, I'm gonna bounce around here because of the way things are going, so I'm gonna try and, I guess the one that pops out right at me, and it was mentioned, but I did not see it, and I think I asked you about it, and you said that it had not been completed in its paper form, is a traffic impact analysis.
Correct.
Now, Hutter and Hayden, I think everybody who knows or drives it enters around here, is increasingly becoming more and more dangerous almost daily. The situation is, it's an east-west from Hayden, from Post Falls, Rathdrum, who knows where, and I believe it's only going to continue to be such, as is Hutter becoming more and more traffic. Can you summarize, let me back up a step here. My concern would be with the phasing related to just, in this case, the traffic issue. Is there development or improvements to Hayden and Hutter as it develops based on the reevaluation of, okay, phase one has, I don't know what, 100 dwelling units, say. And you go back and look and say, what effect is that having of these cars coming in and out of here on this alone? Is the plan adequate enough for the next phase, if I'm making sense here? It's a kind of a graduated phase in to the improvements that are going to be necessary. We're going to put a four-way light there.
So, and that is exactly what the traffic impact analysis is intended to address.
And it's completed.
So we have our consultant reviewing it, and then comments will go back, so it's not done yet.
So at this point in time, it sounds like, and understandably,
It's been completed by the developer, and it's under review by our consultant.
This may be a question for the developer then, because I'd like to have some idea, if possible, at this point, of what they may even just be considering. What are we going to do with
That's,
this?
and to me, that's kind of like getting down into the weeds, and we're not there yet. That's, Fonda was talking about another bite at the apple. That would be probably under the final PUD plan, where we get down to the nuts and bolts and hammer out the timing issues of when the various mitigations will occur.
So we don't really can't talk about or don't really even know basically what the potential mitigations will be. You keep talking about mixed use, and when I hear mixed use, I think of the commercial on the lower and apartments on the top type thing, and I don't see any of that type
And that's not proposed in this.
in this, right? So there is no mixed use type in it.
They're multifamily, constructed by fourplexes.
Right, so they're,
Mostly because, as that was identified in their narrative and in their presentation, so it shows up in your minutes and your written recommendation, that they are butted right up against commercial full length of government of Hayden Avenue. So they recognize the fact that folks that live in a variety of these housing units could potentially be utilizing those commercial services that'll be available to them. Correct.
yeah.
And we don't use the A word in Hayden. That's just, we don't say
No,
that.
careful, I don't know which one you're talking about.
Somebody got it.
Let me
Thank you.
kind of bounce around here. Intersection, Hayden, Hunt, 6 years. So it looks like the projected build out is roughly 6 years. If we're talking 4 phases, look like they said 18 months
Plus or minus.
per phase, somewhere around there. Single family. Okay, now let me get into this stuff. Okay, again, the sticking point here is gross, and I understand it, and the annexation agreement, does it say 4 dwelling units per gross acre? Is that
Yes.
the legal contractual aspect of it? So if we, and I don't know if this is the right time, say, to do this too, so if we go messing with that, we open ourselves up,
You're contractually bound to the annexation agreement.
and do we have a right to say, well, listen, it's 4 gross per acre, and we want to see it in this form? We don't have the right to tell them
Have an
what,
agreement that says 4 units per gross acre.
yeah, and that's, yeah, okay. Impact fees, public, private. Again, the policy for the city should evaluate community-wide impacts from development, and again, we really don't know the traffic impact at this point in time. As of 7:02 on tonight, we really can't discuss or don't know what those impacts are, if I'm seeing correctly. 3.24 dwellings per acre, applicant has requested. Yeah, the request to waive the minimum lot size in the single-family R1, I get it, and I understand what we're talking about, the kind of exchange for this, for that. And there is appears to be a lot of green area, a lot of park area that I'm going to, again, guess that if they wanted to, they didn't have to give us as much as they give us, so, it's all trade-off.
Yeah, they identified 13.7% of their area as open space and greenway. The annexation agreement required 10% of the annexed area, and they've actually given more. So 10% of 127 in this case is 12.7, but they're actually doing it for the whole 150 acres, so they're giving us the 15 acres plus greenway tracts throughout the PUD.
Right, okay.
As proposed.
Okay.
And the reason I say giving as part of their annexation requirement is because they will also be paying park impact fees in addition to the development of the park, because it was a requirement of their annexation.
And so many of my questions here are related to traffic impact analysis. All right, so that might cut a lot of this time down. It's supposed to be 112 single family, 300 lots.
Rob, can you speak to the frontage improvements on Hayden Avenue? I mean, I know we can't talk about the intersection mitigations, but can you speak to Hayden Avenue itself?
Hayden Avenue is planned for a 5-lane section. That's 2 lanes in each direction with a 2-way left turn in the middle. they're responsible for the north half of Hayden Avenue along the frontage.
Just along their frontage, so it'll do, we're
So
gonna
from,
be doing that kind
so
of
from Hutter,
1 to 2,
to Carrington,
yeah.
similar to Carrington Meadows, widening Hayden along their frontage
Right.
for their subdivision.
So they're gonna kind of connect to that, but until, as things develop, we're still gonna be dealing with a significant amount of single lane to double, 3 to 5 to maybe that, that type of thing until it, as
From
we.
Atlas to Hutter, you're going to be virtually complete on that north side in the near term.
So we'll
We've got
have,
one other subdivision that's underway that will complete that north side.
so on the north side of Hayden, we'll have 2 and half a turn lane or whatever, we'll have 3 on the north side and,
I mean, it's going to be, it'll be a significant improvement.
yeah.
And then they'll be doing their frontage on Carrington, and those will have also the greenway strips that are required on that, so that'll be a broader, wider improvement.
Okay.
And the impacts to Atlas Hayden intersection and Hutter Hayden intersection are being identified in the traffic analysis, and the mitigation requirements will be part of that.
And Carrington.
And Carrington and Hayden. So those 3 intersections are identified to address the impacts.
Okay. So yeah, a lot of these, we're gonna cut this a lot shorter than I thought because they have to do with the gross acreage and the traffic. The sheriff, in their, letter, again, it gets to traffic. Last paragraph of the September 26th letter from the sheriff. Also, a final area to consider is the increased congestion with traffic from development proposed and the surrounding surface streets that will have to handle the additional traffic flow. Could further burden a rapid law enforcement response. And then HARBS, okay, is requesting an odor easement be attached to any lots of the property development. That's really not our business. I mean, the people do their due diligence, figure they're buying a place just south of the treatment plant. You're gonna expect that you're gonna get some every now and then. But, yeah, we aren't in deliberation, so, those are my questions that can be answered right now, I guess, so. Not as long as I thought.
Okay, anybody have anything else for Don? I think Sandy.
Yeah, I was just, I know we're trying for a variety of housing types. I feel like we do have some variety of housing types here. We do have rows of homes that are on the 6,000 square foot lot. I believe that when people come to Hayden, they want a single family home. They want a piece of property, and I'm not in favor of these reduced lots. I'm in favor of keeping in the character of Hayden and keeping the larger family lots. This is unique to Hayden because all the other cities around have smaller things and townhomes. And
Are we going to enter deliberations?
is that what we are?
No, we're not there yet, but I think you're starting is what I'm getting at.
Okay,
We do want to hear from you, though.
okay, I can,
Yep, so does
you
anybody
can
have any
hear
more
from me in
questions for Donna?
deliberations.
Yeah, one more question.
All right.
Since it was mentioned, Donna, for my benefit as well as everybody here in attendance, could you just in one paragraph or less explain what Connect Kootenai is and what their function is in this project?
I think I might actually defer to Ed. He goes to the Regional Growth in Housing Initiatives Partnership that changed their name to Connect Kootenai. So I think you probably could answer that better than
I
I.
never do anything in one paragraph. You ever see me do anything in one paragraph? I believe in I try to complete and full explanation. So can you elaborate on what it is because they do a lot. So related to this, what is it you're looking for?
What is their function and purpose in this process?
Well, he's bringing it up
This process?
because planning and zoning added a condition asking if this were to be approved,
Oh, I see where
that
we're
the
going now. Yeah, I remember
developer
that.
reach out to Connect Kootenai. If I,
Connect Kootenai is working throughout the county to try and work with landowners, builders, developers, cities, lenders, the whole gamut of development in trying to find a way to facilitate, they've kind of moved away from affordable to the word attainable. Because what is affordable? We can't find that, oh, the formula for this and that, forget it. What is really attainable? And they've come up with a couple of different ways to work with various developers, to make more accessible to the workforce, shall we say. I think, and some of them have, like developers we've even had, I think people say 10% of them are going to be affordable. Well, I say, well, okay, what is that? And it's even with this thing, when I heard it again, I'm thinking, okay, what's the number? What, and can we have a binding condition that, okay, X number are going to be less than $300,000? How do we come up with that? And that's where Connect Kootenai, which used to be the regional housing growth or something like that, is really struggles. It's really a broad so varied in what they do and so individual with their variety of projects. How it would apply to this particular one, I think, and I don't speak for them, my guess is they would like some type of a commitment to have some percentage of dwellings that would fit within a particular price point and or some way to assist, or I even think it was brought up here, to ensure that Kootenai County residents.
no, what it says
Community
is,
members.
the condition is, proposed condition is, the application for final plan unit development shall provide documentation that the applicant developer owner has contacted
Okay.
Kootenai, Connect Kootenai, and possibly others in order to provide for a method to making a portion of the proposed housing available to actual residents of the community.
And that is basically, there describes what Connect Kootenai is about in less than a paragraph. To answer, I should have said read it, because that's basically.
I tried to get you to ask me to do that.
So literally, they could just get together for a cup of coffee and discuss it.
And
There's
provide
no contractual agreement or strings attached.
Right.
Okay.
That condition just says, please contact them and make it a
Try. Okay, thank you.
So where that condition, I just want to talk a little bit about where that condition came out of. So as Councilmember President Roeder identified, is that one of the reasons for planned unit development is for densification, which this is not. That's why we didn't really talk about, what happens if you do these A, B, C, A through E things to get more density. So one of the things on those A through E is to provide for, in our code, I think it calls it workforce housing. So if you provide X amount of workforce housing, you get a percentage density bonus. Well, they're not asking for a density bonus,
Read that.
but it was recognized by Commissioner, now Vice Chair Howard, that it would be really nice to see if, because part of their narrative identifies this live and work relationship with Hayden, and can you ensure some method to have it really for people who work here to live here? So that's where that condition kind of comes out of.
Another question or somebody else?
You're limited to 3, that's it. Fire away, fire away. Since you're the expert in the room,
Not.
if you could look in your crystal ball for all of Greater Hayden, how many more potential opportunities would there be for doing a PUD?
PUDs can be done on a variety of pieces of property. They're probably the most, they fit the best on, in my opinion, totally my opinion, PUDs function the best on a larger piece of property because you can actually build the neighborhood to be the connectivity and the community and the design can actually get built on a bigger piece of property than on a smaller piece of property. That's not to say you can't do it. It's just far more difficult to do a PUD on a smaller piece of property.
Let me ask a different way then. How close, if this were to be built out as a PUD, how close would this be coming to the city's goal of meeting that variety of housing types?
If I go back to the future land use map, which is in here somewhere, that's the existing zone map, which recognizes the commercial, which at that point in time, well now, but when it was annexed, it allowed for multifamily in that area, about 23 acres that's there. They're proposing far less than 23 acres to be multifamily. Our comprehensive plan map shows a mixture of uses far larger than what they're proposing. I think they're recognizing City Council's direction. They've been at almost every public hearing for the planning and zoning on City Council for the last 4 years and then some probably. And they recognize direction of council and they're trying to meet the intent of a mixture of uses and recognizing that maybe this is too aggressive for those mixtures of uses and that what they're proposing is more in line with what was intended with those 23 acres of what could have been multifamily uses previously.
I'm done. Thank you.
All right. Does city council wish to start deliberations? Oh, I'm sorry.
Does the applicant speak at all?
No, not a
Oh,
public
okay,
meeting.
Right, this is not a hearing.
And that was the appropriate question, whether city council wishes to begin deliberations.
Right, so does city council wish
Which
to?
slide do you want me to leave up? Because I want to go. sit
Price
down.
standards of approval, that's mine, but they're the ones that make the decision.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Since this is not a quasi judicial decision tonight, what ultimately is the goal of this discussion?
I believe it is to approve the pre-planned unit development.
It's
Or-
to approve the concept so that they
concept.
can proceed with actually submitting an application to the city
For final PUD.
for final
And
PUD.
notably, as the apple analogy was used, there will be many steps along the way before sticks and mortar are poured and cut, where we talk about traffic and what the houses look like and all the other things like that. So this is just more of the concept of, does the developer continue to spend money moving in this direction? Is that reasonably accurate?
Question I have.
Yes,
This is not only for this, but going forward, and I'm just curious as to, in the event a land use issue comes before council and there's a tie, typically the mayor will break the tie. My question is, if he voted on that land use issue as the chairman of the P and Z, is he still allowed to vote because he's already provided an indication of how he voted?
He can answer that.
So conceptually, you have a point on the case of this PUD. I purposely removed myself from any hearings as a P&Z commissioner so that I would be able to make a unbiased decision sitting with city council.
So is that a yes, that you
No.
will vote?
He is
Yes, I
able to
can
vote.
vote. No, I have not seen this information before.
Correct.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
but let's ask that follow-up, sorry, but if he's seen the information before and he voted on it, is he still allowed to vote on it as a,
He would not have been. That's why he removed himself previously and did not hear the information and did not vote. So this
You are
came,
correct. If he heard it previously, he couldn't vote today.
That's correct.
That's correct.
again, this going forward?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just, out of curiosity.
you are
There might
correct.
be a case in the future where that's possible.
Okay,
Yeah.
I just, thank you.
Good question. Okay, so to council, do we want to start deliberation?
Sure, why not?
Okay, we have a yes. Let us deliberate. You want to go first, Tom, or no?
No, I'd actually rather hear everybody else.
All right. I believe Sandra started, so would you like to wrap up your thoughts?
Sure.
Thank you.
First of all, I wanted to pick up the Connect Kootenai conversation that we had. I just wanted to mention that as a council, we decided last year to not support Connect Kootenai financially. And so so we don't have a connection with Connect Kootenai, and I think to bring it into this, at this time would be premature.
But we can modify or
The
add
policies.
conditions, right? We could remove planning and zoning's condition?
You can.
Okay, so if we want to, we can remove that condition.
Okay. And, let's see. Okay, so, yeah, I mentioned that the park seemed too private and maybe disjointed. I'm concerned about the crowding of the homes just being all forced together. I know that technically it fits 4 per acre, but it just, I'm concerned about the crowding and let's see. I'm also concerned about the sewer section of to the north of us where they were cautioned that there would be odors coming from there, and I'm concerned about that too. Yeah, I know that they would be notified in the CCNRs. Let's see. And they were talking about the workplace would be close to the home, and I don't know how we can engineer that, how we could have people living and working close to each other. So I think that some things we can't control. We can't control where people work and where they come from. And I'm also concerned about it being a large homeowners association. When we were not on the board when Hayden Canyon came to be, and that's one of the biggest PUDs that we've got. And I'm concerned that doing a PUD of this magnitude is taking off, is biting more than we can chew at this time. So that's where I am.
Okay. Matt, you want to add?
Yeah, I don't think mine's going to be real long here. Donna started out tonight where she asked the question, does it fit? Does it work? And I think that's those are 2 critical questions. And I'll put this in relationship to what I'm thinking. On January 18, 2004, during the Harbs meeting, which I'm the voting member of representing the city, it was reported there are 786 residential connections available at the sewer plant. I don't know that the minutes are out yet, but that's what it'll reflect. That's what the superintendent, Ken Windrum, that he reports every month, how many are available. So let's just make sure, we're clear. We have delivery capacity and we have the plant's capacity to treat sewage. Again, 786 residential connections available at the plant today. I heard tonight that there's an 18-month build-out possibly on this project. So that means that in 18 months, based on what I heard, there'd be 412 dwelling units.
It was 6 years.
6 years.
That's one phase, 18-month phase.
Okay, so let's just leave it at, that's 412 dwelling units to be built sometime in the future. Hayden Canyon has 1,500 dwelling units that it needs to be connected to. You just add those 2, and this is let's say a conservative number, that's 1,912 residential hookups, and we have a capacity of 786. We don't know, and no one can predict how fast this will be built out, either Hayden Canyon or Hayden Sky. And that's not including the other developments that are going on, and I don't know what the total number of those are. My concern is that I don't want to overcommit on something that we can't supply. And if we only have, just the new car wash metro took up 200 residential connections, just one business. So and we just completed what was phase 2 of the regulatory requirements to the plant, which is all the discharge PMDLs that we discharge in the Spokane River and we land apply. That took a long time for planning and engineering and build out. If we started today, I don't know, it may be 2 years, 3 years before you get to, and that's just a guess, to increase the sewer capacity. So I see a problem with where we're at with our residential connections and where we're committing to. And I don't want to overcommit. And that's my issue right now is who's going to get shortchanged possibly on these residential connections if there's not enough. There's going to be a shortage unless we build more capacity. And that's what I have to say.
Okay. Ed?
Yeah, the traffic is, as I think is pretty obvious, is my primary concern with it. And not really being able to project, have an idea of how it's going to be mitigated, handled, or whatever, really concerns me, because that's becoming I've driven that area at various hours of the day, and it's dangerous, okay? And I'd like to, number one, see that aspect of it. And that kind of goes along kind of with the sewer aspect. Are we getting ahead of ourselves, and are we going to find ourselves behind in the infrastructure and roads? And we're already behind trying to catch up with a lot of what's happening around the city and the county. I think before I've used the term might not be the right time. That's just the gut feeling I'm getting. I appreciate the developer's attempt to provide the variety, because we need a variety. Okay, the survey said they like a variety, but like kind of I said last night at our workshop, the big question is how much and where when it comes to the various types and things like that. So I'm leaning towards needing more clarification about exactly how roads, traffic, sewer, and the like are going to be dealt with. If this has a build out that, if I saw it right, it's something like 18 months per phase, 4 phases, that's 6 years. And we don't know what, you look at what's happened over the last 6 years. Nobody would have predicted 6 years ago what we'd be dealing with today, or what we dealt with the last 2 or 3 years type of thing. So we can't really tell what's going to be happening in the next 2 to 3 to 6 years. I think those are my primary concerns.
Okay. You ready?
I hope so. As I deliberate, Donna or Fonda, you can help me out here. So are we obligated by Idaho statute to provide a certain amount of housing variety types?
You are obligated by statute to provide a variety of housing.
In that statute, does it specify percentages?
No,
It just says we provide.
that's correct.
Okay.
And plan for.
Plan for. I wish I could recite the numbers from the comp plan. I cannot. But where I'm going with this is if we approve this for a variety of housing types, what precedent does this set for the next PUD, how many PUDs will be coming online using this as a model? And what will that end up resulting in terms of a balance of single-family homes on either suburban lots or residential lots versus, 6,250 square feet was the average for this PUD. I'm in support of housing variety types, but I have no idea of like what is our ultimate goal for the city of Hayden and where this fits in there. That's my deliberation.
Okay. I hope council doesn't mind. I'm used to the habit of providing a little, my thoughts also. I don't know what's normal, if the mayor normally does or not, but I'm going to throw my neck out there. I heard a lot of good questions from city council tonight. But again, this is just a preliminary decision. It doesn't lock us into any style of how, it doesn't lock us into plats. It doesn't lock us into houses. This is good faith for the developer to continue. Again, lots of good questions. Sewer, traffic, all that. Those are addressed and follow on as these PUDs are multi-step. On the concept of, or on the topic of housing and it being condensed, the developer has put generous parks in there, not required to do. Let's just say for giggles that the whole thing was R1 and you cut those into quarter acre homes, there's 50 square foot homes, you're still gonna have a ton of homes in there. And so all the issues you all have brought up are still going to exist. And where a developer could bring stuff in that's already authorized by code, would not require necessarily us to make a decision, and all that stuff would get built, and you still end up with the same problems you're talking about. So what we have here is a developer coming forward in good faith, offering, I think, a rather generous contribution to the community, as some of you agreed, where we do need housing for working class people. We have parks that are not required being put in. And so lastly, what I used to tell the folks on P&Z is, what else would a developer do with this land? So if you don't have this, what can you imagine, given the land use map, the future land use map? A developer could come in and put something lots worse and not ask your permission for it. And now you're stuck with all these same problems and you don't have a say in it. So at least with this, city council can guide the development of this to make the best of the situation. Those are just some thoughts to consider. I'm not pushing you guys one way or the other. And that's it.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I'm looking for, was it 127 acres? Is that the number? So let's just say, and then your point spurred the thought, even they put in 127 acres for single family, okay, you're gonna get 508 dwellings.
Yep.
And that kind of is just to make his point. I said what I said and what I feel about it, but he is correct. You know, put yourself in the landowner's shoes or the developer's shoes, and they may say, okay, it says we can do this. This is what we're gonna do. And I don't think we're able to deny that.
Correct.
Type of thing. So it's, I think I use this reason, be careful what you wish for type of thing. And that's what we have to kind of consider and weigh. You know, it's like I said, I like the idea of what they did there, what they're proposing to do. My concerns are as stated, but, and anybody knows me, I got into this because of the growth and density. That's how I ended up sitting in this chair. And it's no real secret about my desire to manage it as best we can. So, like I said, if my concerns could be mitigated, I think I'd much rather see 400 and whatever than 508.
Is that including doing math for the mixed use where it's higher density?
No, that was single family, that was 4 dwellings per acre.
So remember, a lot of the flum had a big purple sloth in it, and ask yourself.
They'd have to get a zone
change.
Okay, but
To
it's,
our map right now,
but
to our
it's-
current map,
correct.
single family housing, if they could put
but it's still possible that a zone map amendment could come forth, and maybe we're sitting here, and maybe another city council.
He did the
sitting here.
127 times 4.
I understand.
Did it
Yeah, it's
have
still
it?
more at the end of the day, but my
Could you
point is,
explain that
it
again?
could even be worse, is what I'm getting at. Potentially in the future, if part of this land is on the future land use map, dedicated for mixed use, higher density homes could be put in, and again, you have less say in there. I'm not saying they will.
If the
because again,
zone map
If the zone
amendment
map
were
amendment.
it would require a zone map amendment and some other things, but the point is, we may not be here. And the city council and or mayor or and planning and zoning may just give it the thumbs up and it goes right through. Again, this is your opportunity to look at this and say, well, I might not love this. It could be a lot worse, a lot. And I'm not trying to scare anybody. I'm just saying factually, if you look at all the parameters, that is the case.
Because if we, let's say we approve this, hypothetically, correct me if I'm not interpreting it correctly. That is basically telling the developer, okay, go ahead and start spending your money. Big money, probably. Whatever they've done here, I'm sure has already cost a pretty penny type of thing. So they're gonna say, okay, and they're probably gonna be wed to this, and it's what they're gonna do. And if they then bring it to us and for some reason we say, we don't want it, we're probably stepping in a big bucket of stuff. And do we want to go that? Do we want to end up there down, I don't know, how 6 months, a year, whenever by the time they do their next steps?
But I think this is one, good faith, and two, if the city's working with all these parameters, we should hopefully don't ever start something where we get halfway through it and then it blows up.
Here's the question I guess I have, and I don't know if it can be answered. Again, hypothetically, we say, okay, we approve it, but come down the road, if we aren't satisfied with the mitigation to the traffic, roads, infrastructure that I have, but others have also voiced, when they come for us again with the next step, and we say, nope, not happy with it.
Well, that's why you have a traffic impact analysis, is because that's what provides the developer direction on what they have to mitigate in relationship to their traffic.
Can I just throw this out there then? Just personally, I'd like to table this until we get the traffic analysis.
You want to table your deliberations?
Table this issue, deliberation or whatever, until we have a chance to digest and even maybe more information on the sewer, because that's come up a lot. You know, what happened, and I heard it's first come, first serve, and if there are not hookups available, you know, and they say, sorry, they took these and they took these, where does that leave the developer? I'm guessing they understand that if that were to happen, you know, they're waiting and waiting and waiting. Who knows what the resolution of that would be? Don't know, but it's just another one of those things. So if I would like to wait before making a decision until I see the traffic analysis, so that I can really say, okay, does it look like they can mitigate these issues? And if not, then, you know, I'd be no. But if so, then I'd consider.
Okay, any other deliberations?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
could we, I would like to make a move that we deny this request at this time.
Okay, I mean, that is certainly something you can do. It probably has to.
Motion on the table.
Probably, does it have to be worded any differently?
Before we take that on, Mr. Mayor, could I counter?
Well, there
She
is,
needs to withdraw her motion if you want to have any discussion. You have a motion on the table.
yep. So if it doesn't get seconded, it dies. If it gets seconded, then it gets voted on, or she can, or
Withdraw.
Councilman
she can,
White, would you mind for the moment withdrawing your motion so I can say something?
Well, would be after it's seconded that we would discuss, is that, would it go to discussion after a second?
It can. The options are it either gets seconded and you can have discussion, you withdraw it, or it fails for lack of a second.
But you can,
I'll second it so we can have discussion.
okay.
There you go.
So we can continue.
So, but it's discussion about the
Denial.
denial now,
Okay.
not something else.
I don't know how to proceed on this.
The worst thing you can do is that we'll get direction. Go fire away.
Go.
This is a job where you park the car and you leave the ego in the car.
So Mark, just,
I'm a little lost.
you're okay.
Okay.
What do you want to say?
Councilman DePriest brings up a very good point. On paper, there are things that are good about this, as well as, in my perspective, not good. But I lack complete information on making a decision because we really have, and I'm going to go back to my question, we have no goal upon which I can grade whether or not we have our, how far along the yardstick are we achieving this affordable housing goal? And, you know, I would hate to say that this becomes a precedent by which they spring up like dandelions in my yard down the road.
But the good news is if they do, you can say no. Each PUD is different, and the fact that the city elects to put a PUD here does not make any guarantee that somebody could put a PUD there.
And I think as Donna said, when you look at when you look at this size of open land, I don't foresee within our city limits right now too many other opportunities for a PUD of this size. And usually I would assume, again, I love that word because I know what it means. PUDs are larger areas. You know, if someone's going to say, I want a 3-acre PUD over here.
Yeah.
You know,
Obviously, that won't
you know,
work.
that kind of stuff. So I think when I try and look at right now, where is there, you know, and this stuff's spoken for. And here's the piece we're talking, let's use the current. Yeah, here's what we're talking about right here. This stuff is all basically spoken for. This isn't in the city. This is the spreading stuff up there, what have you. So I don't see too many areas where we're gonna have this size of a project, unless you want to put it in the infield of the airport right there. But, you know, if you see what I'm saying.
Yep.
Are there any more deliberations? So we have a motion and we have a second, and so because this is a motion to deny, if you vote yes, that means you want to deny it, so let's not get the yeses and nos backwards, okay? May we get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Schaefer?
Repeat again what I'm voting for, please.
The motion is to deny the request for the plan or preliminary planned unit development. So voting yes would mean that you are voting to deny the request. Voting no would mean you are not voting to deny the request.
No.
Councilmember DePriest?
No.
Council President Roeder?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
And Mayor Davis?
Wow. I'm gonna vote no.
First night in, boy.
Okay, so the motion doesn't pass.
Can I make a motion?
You can make a motion.
I'd like the motion to table this issue until council has an opportunity to review the traffic impact analysis. And I'd be open if there's any opportunity related to other sewer to add review of any other information we could bring into it. But right now, my motion is to table this issue until we all have an opportunity to review the traffic impact analysis.
Can I add to your motion?
Yeah. Can't she?
No, he cannot add to.
Can I,
Didn't mean to speak for you, sorry. Can't do it.
can I ride on his coattails?
Right, Ron?
Why don't you make a motion to amend his motion to add to it?
Can I make a motion? I would like to make a motion to amend Councilman Dupree's motion.
There's not been a second, so go ahead.
And that is that we take into context how much this moves the goal, moves us towards the goal of the variety of housing types that the city plans to implement or manage, whatever the right word is.
How we're gonna quantify that, I don't know.
Well, we have numbers in the comp plan.
I
You
guess,
guys are formulating a motion.
okay, I'm gonna withdraw my motion.
Withdraw your motion.
I'm gonna
There you
withdraw
go.
the motion so that we can do some discussion and then maybe come up with a more concise motion. How's that sound?
That sounds
So
better.
moved. Thank you. So what I'd like to say again is, by tabling this issue and the specific request related to the review of the traffic impact analysis does not preclude, I wouldn't think, research into the numbers and information that anybody else may want to gather, so that when we come back, I said, okay, I got what I wanted here, and hopefully everybody else will have said, yeah, I looked at that too. But then when we bring it back for additional deliberation, you may say, well, I've looked into the numbers on percentage of this and that. Councilmember Roeder may say, well, I've looked into HARBs and this and that, whatever, and everybody else may have gathered all of their.
The problem is you have a closed public hearing record.
Yeah.
So you have a closed public hearing record.
What does
So
that mean?
that means that the PUD process in your code provides for a public hearing. And all of the information as far as data is presented, to include the applicant, is presented at that public hearing process. And the planning and zoning, because it starts there, here's all of that, and the public has a right to comment on it, and the applicant has a right to rebut. What you do when you have a closed hearing process, you can't bring other data into the hearing without the applicant having an opportunity to rebut that information or answer questions from you. So if you
PUD
want.
is one of those things that doesn't have a public hearing in
At
front of
council, that's correct.
As
just a meeting, not a hearing.
differentiated from the others that we changed the.
That's correct.
I knew when that happened that this was gonna come up. So what about my tabling pending review?
Well, the applicant will have an opportunity to request a second public hearing if you want additional information that they want to have a right to rebut.
Okay, but what about just table to review the traffic impact analysis? Is that,
May table it to the traffic impact analysis and the
but no other
required.
additional new information? All right, I'm gonna go back to it. I'm gonna motion to table this issue, this item, until we have an opportunity to review the traffic impact analysis.
And then based on your commentary on the traffic impact analysis information that you receive at any future meeting, the applicant will have a right to
Absolutely.
request a public hearing to rebut anything that they hear. Okay.
I'd like to make amendment to that motion.
Okay.
My amendment is that an analysis is done of the capacity of the sewer plant and relating to the existing approved house, developments and how many residential units are committed, and to try to determine at what point that the sewer plant has to be upgraded to meet that demand.
So
In other words, we have a disconnect. We got more residential dwellings than we can service. And I don't think it's fair to approve more developments without knowing we can service it. Now, I know it's a timing issue.
it's not a timing issue. We don't have jurisdiction, exclusive jurisdiction over HARPs.
Well, I'm asking that a study is done to determine how quickly those are going to be eaten up based on the amount of development that we have going on. Because that's my concern. How do we make sure that this matches? Because right now it doesn't.
So you want to know number of approved parcels that don't have pending building permits? So how many building permits could potentially be issued right now in the city of Hayden?
Well, I want somebody to figure out at what point we're in trouble. We don't have enough
Well, the plant's in
capacity.
trouble. It's not a we, it's Harbs. We have collection.
But that would basically,
But we own 74% of Harbs.
Have an equal 1/3
I
vote with the
know,
county
we're
and the
gonna go into that
district. You know
argument.
how it works.
Yeah, the joint powers agreement, but we do, I feel we have a responsibility to the city not to overcommit. That's my concern.
it sounds like, and again, Craig, we're going to get to a point where possibly all this, Harbs are going to be, they're going to say, we're all done, and people are going to be hanging.
Possibly.
And I guess that's not on us, but I mean, and so does that create an effective, maybe not statutorily, but moratorium until Harbs can create the capacity for more when people come to us and we get the will serve letters or whatever, they say, nope, we don't have it. And so it's basically, nope, 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 because we can't serve you.
Well, first of all, if you haven't read our will serve letters, they're very clear that we are not committing on treatment. So that's number one. Number two, yes, if Harbs runs out of capacity, you could end up in a quasi moratorium or a court-ordered expansion of Harbs.
Oh, and who
So
pays?
you asked the question.
Who pays for the expansion?
Expense.
We're not having that
We
conversation
know,
tonight.
we
Yeah,
know.
it's a
know who it
rhetorical
is.
question.
Yeah, we all know.
Yeah, so that's I mean, if we're gonna be, at least speaking for myself, I think we need to be prudent about what we approve and can we match it? That's my big concern. If we just blindly go, well, it doesn't matter, let's keep going. I see an issue with that. I don't think we're being responsible by overcommitting, and that's what I see what we're doing with this.
But as we had another meeting last night where this came up, it's public. You can't ration these connections, and it's
Well, I
first
know.
come, first serve.
The applicant can ask for another public hearing, correct? Is that what you just said? Can the council ask for another public hearing?
No, it's not in your code for that.
Let me ask council this.
What I said, applicant could ask for it because you're bringing in information that's not
I
in the
know, I
record
just-
that they have a right to rebut.
Let me ask council this. Let's just say hypothetically, I think Ed said there's up to, hypothetically, you put 524 homes in there. How is council going to address if a couple months, somebody wants to put in 4 homes, and then in another couple months, somebody's gonna put 4 homes in, and then another couple months, somebody's gonna put 4 homes in, and we end up growing the same problem while the developer is just slowly doing it. In other words, I'm not seeing this rationale specific to this PUD. It's really the problem, the question that you're throwing up, you could throw up for a single home going on East Miles as you could this PUD.
It's going to be a cumulative effect.
Yeah, it's a cumulative effect. That's the issue.
Right, but I'm just questioning, what is your strategy? I mean, it's an obvious strategy when you're wanting to dump whatever the number of homes is here for this PUD. It becomes a lot less obvious when we have routine development happening.
Well, let's just take,
I mean, unless you're gonna have some kind of a dashboard with a speedometer on it for the whole city, so you can make a decision.
so just take one development, Hayden Canyon, 1,500 dwelling units.
Yep.
And we only have capacity of 786. We got a problem right there, regardless of what else is that. Is it prudent to keep moving forward without having the right capacity in the future here? And I know that that's all timing issue, I understand that. But unless we start planning that increase in capacity to the sewer plant, it's going to take a few years to get that done. The planning, all the requirements, the construction, how long is it going to take to catch up? In the meantime, we've got these developers spending money that want to do something. In sewer, if you don't have sewer, you can't do anything. That's my point.
Sure, but we also have a development here that's being proposed over the next 6 years, and you just said that the sewer could potentially be developed in 3 to 4 years. I mean, it's what I'm hearing, and I'm just playing devil's advocate for you. I'm not trying to push you guys one way or the other, is you almost want the cart built completely perfect before you latch the horse up to it. Maybe that's a bad analogy.
I don't want to state the obvious either, but what Councilman Roeder brought into the conversation is not information that is in your record. Not in your public hearing record.
Okay. So we have a motion on the table. We have an amendment. Is the amendment legal, lawful?
He made an amendment to ask for, we were just trying to drill down on what sort of analysis he was looking for
Right.
on.
What I'm asking though is should it be restated succinctly such that council can make a vote on it?
Sure.
That would probably be prudent.
Okay, let me
Because
think.
I'm lost personally.
Yeah, let me think about how that can be articulated in specific, I would like staff to come up with some kind of analysis to show that based on the current residential connections of 786 residential connections, how long that's going to last with all the development that's already been approved. In other words, give us a time period. In 6 months, maybe it'll be, like, for example, we had December, October, and I shouldn't go into detail. We had a huge increase in the amount of residential hookups that were increased at Harbs. And again, we can't predict, but I would like the staff to give us some kind of indication of how long it will be until that sewer plant should be upgraded to meet the demand.
So I believe Harbs needs to have some comment on this.
True.
First of all,
True.
nobody in the room here is speaking for Harbs, nor is their legal counsel here. So let's be really clear.
So how do I draft a resolution that I'm trying to avoid overcommitting to development in the future where sewer can't be supplied? That's a big, at least, am I the only one that sees that?
Can I make a recommendation that that request to staff not be tied to your decision on this particular PUD, and that you finish your decision on this particular PUD, and then, yes, if you want to give some direction to staff to do that analysis for projects going forward, I think that's appropriate direction to work with Harbs and figure out, based on the amount of connections left, what's in the pipeline and where might we land here?
My motion will be that analysis needs to be done by whomever, it'll be our consultant, to determine at what point are we going to need to have an increase in sewer capacity?
He made a motion to amend the motion. Is
Okay.
anybody seconding that?
Anybody want to second that?
I will second it.
Okay, we have a roll call vote, please.
Roll call vote on the amendment only.
My amendment.
Yes, correct,
Right.
on Matt's amendment.
Last goes first.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember DePriest?
No.
Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
And Council President Roder?
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes.
Now you still had an underlying motion.
To table the decision until a traffic analysis study can be completed.
And now additional analysis on sewer treatment
And additional,
capacity.
yeah, in addition. So, that motion needs a second still, right?
I thought it had a second. Oh,
No, I think
needs
it
a
went, it
second.
just got amended.
Okay,
So do we have a second on that?
Are we seconding the amendment that Ed did, or are we
Motion.
seconding
The
the
motion
original
to table.
motion?
His original motion that you
motion to
amended.
table until after the traffic impact analysis is
Completed.
reviewed and now also the sewer treatment.
Yep.
I will second Councilman DePriest's motion.
You seconding it?
I'm
So we have a
seconding.
motion and a second. May we get a roll call vote, please?
Council President Roder?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
And Councilmember DePriest?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
Okay, so given that there will be substantive information presented to council that will assist them in making their decision going forward, this will require another public hearing. We'll give the applicant the choice of whether this goes back to planning and zoning or the public hearing is held here at council. And they will have an opportunity to comment on, rebut, and provide their own experts.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Regarding my concern about variety of housing types, and what the city's ultimate goal is, and what the available real estate is. If I want to bring that up, am I allowed to as part of our future deliberations?
No, you will not be able to unless it's part of the public hearing process. So,
Explain to me what that means.
well, it's been brought up here tonight. I would anticipate that the applicant's going to have a way to comment on that and rebut what they've heard tonight.
Oh, yeah, I have
And
no
then, yes, you can talk about it in deliberation.
So it will be the applicant's initiative to
Yeah.
do an estimate, and then we can deliberate on that?
No. No. If you want some sort of an estimate analysis that I don't quite understand yet, we can work on that. If that information is utilized during your public hearing process, your applicant has a right to rebut that information and comment on it.
Oh, I have no problem with that.
Okay.
And if I haven't clearly articulated myself, I'm glad to sit
Yes,
one-on-one with you and Donna and explain what my goal is.
that would be best.
Okay. We are now going to move on to the reports section. Our city administrator is out, so do we have any report or calendar review tonight? It's in our packet. That's right, it is. I apologize. That's right. Long meeting, sorry.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember White has a question.
Councilmember White.
Yeah, just a few corrections on the calendar. I believe the times for the planning and zoning meetings are listed as 5, but they should be 5:30.
Thank you. That is true. Planning and zoning has recently moved their meetings to 5:30.
Okay. And also correction on the airport advisory board meetings, those should be 5, not 5:30.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, any more discussion on that? We'll move to any council roundtable discussion. Oh, am I going too fast? Sorry.
No, that's, I just wanted to throw in my usual roundtable
Okay.
comments. Never mind, I get it. Is there any timetable for when and how the Public Safety Commission will be convened, and when and how will the council create criteria, responsibilities, goals, et cetera, to task that Public Safety Commission?
Yes, the Public Safety Commission has been contacted. We are establishing or trying to establish a first meeting date where we provide them with some guidance and a first tasking from me and the city.
So the council is going to come up with goals, whatever, tasking.
If you have tasking for them, then then it's no different than tasking P and Z or anybody else.
That's what I'm saying. So we, as a group, are we going to develop this and then present it, or do you want us just to give, how is the process going to be?
You have to develop that as a group.
Yeah,
None of you unilaterally can give direction
Right.
to the commission.
Right, I assume we'd probably workshop it.
Yeah.
And if city council has a specific idea or task, then they can present it to the commission.
Correct. So I guess my question then is it even in the pipeline for a workshop date?
Nobody said a workshop. If you don't mind, I would like to see them kind of get underway and get going a little bit. And I mean a little, not a lot. And then if we have additional tasking for them, then yeah, let's let them serve you.
I think what Ed's confusion is he thinks that, I think if I'm
How are they
reading your
gonna
face correctly,
basing-
they don't have direction unless council
Know
gives
what
it
they're
to them.
supposed to or expected, or?
Well, or the mayor gives it to them, right?
There are duties and responsibilities within the ordinance.
That's right.
That they have been tasked with.
Yeah.
And then if there's special tasks, that's what the council would.
Thank you.
I'll have to go back and review.
Okay. Are there any other roundtable discussion items that we need to discuss?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to bring up an idea here.
Okay.
So you looked over me with a smile and said, remember you signed up for this.
Did I say that?
Yes, you did.
Oh, now it's for the record, huh?
Yeah, so, you could ask my wife, I was sitting in one position all weekend long, from Friday afternoon until Sunday afternoon. And I have, stated to a couple people here already that I feel like in order to be an effective legislator, I need more time than 3 days to read, consume, and process the amount of information that we were given for this meeting. I would like to propose, Mr. Mayor, that on such consequential matters, I don't get my packet Friday afternoon, but I have a couple weeks to read all this information. Otherwise, I cannot do the job which people have elected me to do. I don't know what kind of limitations there are on that, and I'm open to discussion and persuasion, but this weighs heavily on my heart because I want to do a good job, not a...
I recognize that. You're not trying to stall. Let me work with Lisa and see what we can come up with, okay?
Okay,
I will do that.
thank you.
Any other roundtable items here from the starboard side? I'm hearing none. Okay, the next items on the agenda are executive session, for which we need a motion to go into executive session. That motion is made. And second?
Well, I make the motion that we go into executive session based on Idaho Code 74-2061F.
Second.
Okay, can we get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember DePreez?
Yes.
And Council President Roder?
Yes.
Okay, we are moving into executive session for the public. Have a good night. Please
Well,
drive safe.
They might want to come back. We have 2 action items after executive session.
Okay,
so,
if you so desire to mill about outside of
yeah.
earshot, you're welcome back. But if you don't, please drive safe.
They need to take their personal belongings.
Okay, we are back in session. We are on to the first action item 7, which is the Carrington Meadows 3rd edition acceptance of final plat and infrastructure. You, Rob? This is Carrington Meadows.
Carrington Meadows.
Yep.
All right, so the final plat submitted by Wayne Lockman, PLS, for Carrington Meadows 3rd edition has been reviewed and is in accordance with city code and standards. It is consistent with the preliminary plat approved by the city council and the requirements set forth in the master development agreement. The final inspection has also been completed and the public infrastructure appears to be in substantial conformance with the approved construction drawings and the requirements set forth in the master development agreement. It is my recommendation City Council approve the final plat for signatures and filing and accept the public infrastructure, contingent upon receipt of the required warranty surety and payment of the streetlight operation for 18 months.
Thank you, Rob. So is there a discussion or are we head right to a motion?
Depends on if anybody has any questions for me.
Anybody have any questions for the city
For the staff.
or staff? When I say the city staff, yes. All right, I'm not hearing any. Would anyone like to make a motion?
Sure.
Okay.
I would move to approve Carrington Meadows 3rd edition acceptance of final plat and infrastructure.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
There is a second. May we get a roll call vote, please?
Council President Roder?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
And Councilmember DePreez?
Yes.
All right, very good. Now we're going to move on to item 3A, which was moved down. For the record, we have 2 city council members that have recused themselves. So they are off the diocese. Now the next action item is the Trail Ridge subdivision acceptance of final plat and infrastructure. City staff.
Okay, so there is a memo in the packet, but to introduce it before you tonight for consideration is the approval of the final plat and acceptance of infrastructure for the initial 22-lot phase of the Trail Ridge subdivision, formerly known as Stone Creek North. The phase subdivision was approved for a total of 72 lots within the 4 phases. The current plans of the 4 phases show a total of 69 lots.
And this is the first how many lots?
And this is the first 22 lots.
Okay. Okay, do we have any questions for the city staff?
Sure, I'll ask. So this is just the first phase of several phases, correct, that we're dealing with tonight?
The first of 4.
First of 4 phases, okay. With this infrastructure in this phase, is the stormwater directed off-site at all?
This initial phase of stormwater is collected in swales and discharged via dry wells.
Okay, on-site.
On site.
Okay, second question is, the connectivity road through the development, when is it required?
It is actually required at the, after the final plats of Trail Ridge and the proposed Marks Ranch subdivision to the north.
So plural plats.
Plural.
It is not required at this point in time.
Correct.
Okay,
Any questions?
that should do it.
Sandra, any questions for city staff?
Let's see. I was wondering, people are concerned that their homes are going to get flooded. What kind of assurances can you give me that that is not the case here?
The stormwater runoff from this initial phase is contained on site via the treatment through the swales and discharged via the on-site dry wells.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and what about condition 15 that people have been concerned about? Could you briefly explain to me how that's been met? Briefly.
We had a long discussion on this, and I'm not sure I can remember all the ins and outs. But the condition is the geotechnical report was provided to address it, and the surface runoff is addressed in the stormwater report. And again, that stormwater report is in compliance with city code, meets the requirements of city code, completed by a professional engineer with experience and reviewed by an independent engineer with experience in that field.
Okay. And let's see. I guess that's it for my questions.
Okay, does anybody wish to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
Okay,
Okay, because I trust our staff, I trust their professionalism and their expertise, and I believe that what they're telling me is the truth, okay? And I believe that and trust that they would not give false, misleading, or any kind of information that would put anybody, any entity in jeopardy. I'm going to move that we, where'd it go? We moved it.
3A.
3A, that we approve Trail Ridge subdivision acceptance of final plat and infrastructure.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Phase 1 final plat, or is it just
final plat?
Initial.
final plat and infrastructure?
Do we have a second?
I'll second it for the sake of discussion.
Okay, do we have, okay, so is there any discussion that needs to be had?
I think I said.
Yeah,
Okay,
okay.
may we get a roll call vote, please?
Wait, no,
Yes, let's hold that roll call vote.
okay. Yeah, I would like to say something.
Okay.
As an elected city council member, I make it my aim to treat each issue before the council with fairness and impartiality. This includes respecting private property rights of both developers and homeowners. This has been a very difficult decision for me. I've spent much time in prayer and research about this as well. That being said, after hearing our engineers' assurances that standards have been met, I will be voting yes.
Very good. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember White
Yes.
and Councilmember DePreez.
Yes.
Okay, so moved. I believe the last thing to do is adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, please?
You made the motion.
Huh, what's that?
Did Ed make the?
Did you make the motion?
I did.
I apologize. Do we have a second?
Second.
Done? We're adjourned.